Yes, we're good to go. So we welcome back representatives from the Australian Prudential Regulation Authority, and I think we're going to Senator Pocock.
Oh, lovely, thank you. I was reflecting on our conversation and I wondered whether you have a view about the risk associated with investor lending versus lending to owner-occupiers. Do you have a perspective about, do you see one as more risky than the other?
I don't think we would have a view as simple as that, Senator. I think what we would say, though, is there are times in the cycle where the cycle is prone to high growth in investor lending, particularly some high-risk lending like we've identified here. So in that regard, that is a particular segment that we would watch out for. But as a general rule, I don't think we would say, one is better than the other.
As a big category. What does your modelling tell you about the impact of your decision on the 27th of November on the number and value of new loans?
Well, that's something. So it is a brand new tool,
yep.
Senator. It's not a tool that's been used here, I should add. There are similar tools used offshore. So I think in terms of what might happen, we will have to wait and see what the empirics show. But as I tried to explain before, the insertion of this new rule, we would not expect in aggregate to be binding for a while, because the 20% is a long way from where we are in aggregate at the moment.
So do you expect the impact to be on particular institutions that are approaching that limit, not on the system, it's more broadly? Is that what you're saying?
Well, we're setting it per institution, but if there's enough institutions, that will affect the system.
Okay.
What Ms McCarthy-Hockey outlined before was that there are a handful of institutions that are very close to that limit. So for those institutions, it would be binding, but that is very much at the margin when you're looking at it as part of the system.
So when we look at the growth in investor lending in the last 3 months, I've mislaid my piece of paper. Here it is, $40 billion in 3 months. A very significant increase in the number of investor loans, 13.6%. That is a historic high level of investor lending, up by $6 billion in a 3-month period. The value of it's nearly 18% up, way higher than just a couple of years ago when it was at $20 billion, leaving owner-occupiers and first-home buyers in the dust. They're increasing by a couple of percentage points. Are you concerned about that differential and that massive growth in investor lending?
So, Senator, it is true that there has been significant investor growth at the moment. So on our figures, it's a different set of figures. But,
these are ABS figures? How are yours different?
So we're looking at growth rates. So if you look at not just the quantum, so it's 9% is the latest growth rate. So that's high.
9% of what?
9% of investor lending being written, so quarter on quarter growth. So it is high.
Well, I'm looking at ABS statistics which say
so they will be the picture is the same. I don't want to confuse.
17.6% in value growth in the last 3 months is very different from the figure you just used.
So
this is a concern.
Well, I'm happy to come back, Senator, on the base for our stats, but the picture I don't think is different to what you outlined, in that we've had significant growth in investor lending. I think that is certainly true. From APRA's point of view, though, what we look at, we've got 2 jobs, essentially. Job 1 is to make sure that depositors' funds that go into banks are lent at good credit standards. And job 2 is to make sure that the overall resilience of the financial system is sound. They're our 2 jobs. So when we're looking at the actual lending being done, what we said on Thursday was aggregate lending, which includes both investors and it includes owner-occupiers. Credit standards are good. They are good. Right now, despite that growth in investor lending, they are good. But we are trying to preemptively target what we call a small but rising now a cohort of high debt-to-income lending, particularly in investors. We would expect that to bind early. That's what we're doing.
So you have used a single instrument in the same way across both buckets of lending, but I'm paraphrasing, but you expect it to bite earlier in the sector which has grown the most and is the highest level.
Correct.
So at 10% now.
Correct.
So why have you not differentiated, given how different the patterns of growth are?
Because regardless of whether you are an owner-occupier or an investor, large amounts of high debt-to-income lending are not good for the system. But when you look at what drives so that is what drives the rules. So we're not differentiating, but the way that we have designed the tool is to separate the buckets out. And that's because we expect it to be binding on investors well before owner-occupiers. In fact, if it is binding on owner-occupiers.
So when we look back to 2014 and 2017, when you used other tools
Yes.
in your toolbox, which had very significant effects on
Yes.
home prices, housing prices, and assisted in managing the risk in the system, why have you not used the same instruments which had such positive and proven effects at that time? I know you gave some explanation earlier, but I'm not convinced about why you've chosen. I have a clear enough understanding of why you have not used things that are proven to be successful in dampening and preventing excessive risk.
Yeah. So let me try again, and I'll refer
Thank
to
you.
the paper that we had on Thursday, which does unpack what I'm about to say. Try to paraphrase it. So just to be clear, what we're doing now is we're acting preemptively. And we're acting preemptively because aggregate credit standards we think are sound. That's what we're doing now. If you cast your mind back to 2014, we were in a world where we had low interest rates, we had high and rising household debt, subdued income growth, and we had interest-only lending, high LVR lending and high DTI lending, all happening. And we intervened after, because credit standards were low, we intervened to really halt lending in high-risk areas, which included all investors, as you know.
Yeah.
The difference here is we don't see those factors, and and because we don't see those factors, we don't want to see those factors. And one of the big lessons from 2014 is that it's a lot better, it's a lot less disruptive, a lot less costly for the system and for entities and for borrowers, to be frank, to intervene early. And we've intervened with a very precise tool to get to this risk that we're worrying about. And I'll put the overriding caveat on. If next year we see risks develop in a way that we're not happy with, and that could be a whole range of things, we will intervene. We will be back. And that is our job. And what I'm trying to signal to you is we're a forward-looking regulator. That's what we're doing. We're trying our best to look forward and get the risks before they actually can destabilise the system.
So you're saying preemptively, because you don't see these really strong indicators of risk in the system, you've used a tool, but Mr Lonzo, you don't know what effect your tool will have. You haven't modelled it. You said other countries have done it, but it's never been done here before, and you actually haven't had a look. You can't give me a guess even of how it will take effect. That's a worry.
Well, like to be clear, so what have I said? It is a new tool, but it's not a new tool internationally.
No,
so we looked very closely at what had happened internationally to calibrate and design our tool. So that's point one. Point two, I think, try to explain that we have a forward view that if investor lending keeps growing the way it does, it will be binding for investors before owner-occupiers. That is pretty clear to us. But at the moment, in aggregate, it's not binding. That's the third point.
But you can... Sorry, go.
So I would just say, yes, we do anticipate how it will operate. I think you sort of
asked us, do we anticipate how it would operate? So the point about when rates fall, DTI generally goes up. We know that's a fact. We know that's a fact for our system and overseas. So we can see that it is likely to work best and in concert with the Reserve Bank's action, should they seek to do that, where rates would fall, DTI will actually become binding. Now, what binding means in practice is it acts as a guardrail where banks still have capacity to do some lending, but to the very highest quality borrowers. And what we expect to happen is, as we move through the cycle, where that DTI, and it would bind mostly for investors first, that banks can actually manage the flow of credit, they can manage the choices they make and do it in an orderly way such that there's not disruptive effects for the way in which credit to good borrowers would occur. For many reasons. We know that there's lots and lots of different ways in which people are operating within the property sector, including bringing new homes to the system and so on. So there's a range of things we want to make sure it's orderly and through time. What we're saying though, so whilst that's our expectation, we also are a very data-oriented agency. So we will be watching every quarter, is it behaving as we expect? And is there an unintended consequence that is arising? And should we have other actions or recalibrate? And we've got an excellent team who is really very close to the data. They are working closely with the banks as well. What's the intelligence? How are they seeing it? What's the behaviour of the borrower? What's the behaviour of the system itself? Really understanding, is the tool achieving the intended purpose? And that's our intended purpose, is get in front of it, have a guardrail and create orderly credit transition through time and through the cycle.
I guess there are a lot of Australians watching this and thinking about other factors than risk. Clearly we want a system that doesn't fall over and damage many ordinary citizens. But there are also factors around the mix of lending which have very big impacts on people's capability in getting a roof over their head. So quality lending, which benefits people with very large deposits, for example. That's not your average first home buyer. So these are issues which sit for many of us alongside the questions of risk.
But in terms
I'm finished, but the Minister will keep it moving.
Chair, could I just ask, we're running about 3 hours, almost 3 hours behind.
Yes, we are.
Is there any direction, because I've been in this committee a number of times where at the last minute a lot of agencies are released. So I'm just wondering if that is the case, whether or not that can be provided a bit more upfront than 15 minutes before the end of the hearing.
We have been working on that, but at this point don't have any that we can advise, unfortunately. But we'll keep doing some work behind the scenes because I am mindful of that too. Do we have any more questions for APRA from any? Yes. Senator Bragg and Senator O'Neill. If we can keep them as tight as possible, noting how far behind we are, that would be much appreciated. Thank you, Senator Bragg.
The stories about the superannuation funds investing in the Indian oil company, which is allowing Vladimir Putin to get oil out of Russia and maintain his wars of aggression. The position of your agency on sanctions is not known to me. What is it?
Can you comment on that?
The question is, what does APRA do to ensure that Australia's super funds are meeting their sanction obligations that I think the Australian people would expect them to meet?
I don't think we'd be the lead agency on considerations of sanction breaches, Senator.
You may not be the lead agency, but you're the prudential regulator.
Senator Bragg, so the way I might answer that is one of the key focuses of our prudential supervision of all superannuation funds is to ensure that they have appropriate risk management, including compliance management frameworks in place. Our expectation would be that the AML CTF obligations of funds are well considered in those frameworks, that there are controls in place for those funds to actually meet those obligations.
Well, I mean, we have sanctions against Russia for good reason alongside our other Western allies. And it appears that a lot of these funds, which I've written to, sort of say, well, you know, we've tried to sort of comply with them, but we're invested through an organisation called Industry Funds Management, which has got exposure to this particular oil tanker business. I mean, they don't seem to be taking their sanctions seriously. Can I get you to take on notice any more information? You don't seem to have at hand a lot of information about how exactly the funds are supposed to comply with the sanctions. So maybe you'd like to take that on notice, because it's quite an important issue.
Happy to take it on notice, Senator. APRA won't have details on how each fund manages its AML-CTF obligations. However, I will take it on notice and see what information...
But it's not... I just want to be clear. It's not, I understand the AML Act and the way that it all works. These are the sanctions that Australia has imposed, in this case, on countries, but there are also now Magnitsky sanctions which can be imposed on individuals. So we have more sanctions. Some would say that the sanctions of the West have been more successful than a bullet ever would be. So they are an important part of our system of democracy. And I think for you in your role, it would be good to know what your considered position is, because I would imagine that going forward there'll be more rather than less of these.
So, Senator, we're happy to take it on notice. We would appreciate if you could give us the material, as much material as you can on it. We've explained in a high-level way, and as you know, the prudential standards require trustees to act in the best interests of members, but also to think about operational risk, which we outlined at a high level, but beyond that, we're happy to take it on notice.
Well, I mean, there is one fund that was very quick to divest from the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, and it did so on the basis, in its own words, because Australia had recognised a state that doesn't exist called Palestine. But in other cases, you've got super funds deciding that they won't really try as hard as they could to meet the sanctions against a murderous regime like Putin's. So, anyway, I don't want you to comment on the kind of the politics or any of that, but I think we'll provide you the information and we'll look forward to your answer. And just quickly, because I know that the Chair wants to move on, I just wanted to ask you, just following up on some of the stuff that you canvassed with Senators Sharma and O'Neill, just in relation to these third-party trustees, these sort of trustees for hire, is that what you call them?
Professional trustees.
What do you call them?
Professional trustees.
Yeah, sometimes they're not always as professional as they could be, though, I fear. What's that?
Some cowboys in there, I think, Senator
Yeah.
Bragg.
So what are you doing to ensure they don't misuse funds? I mean, what are the controls that you impose on the trustees?
So I might...
So they don't misuse expenses?
So what... Can I seek your permission, Senator and Senator Bragg and Senator O'Neill, to answer the question a little more broadly, and then hopefully I can get to the detail as well. So mindful of our secrecy obligations, when APRA regulates super funds, we look at 4 very broad, high-level categories of prudential capability as we supervise. The first is investment governance capability. The second is operational resilience capability. So that includes operational risk and compliance management, third parties, insurance, cyber, tech risk management, member outcomes, which includes the financial performance of products, and board governance capability. So they're the 4 big categories we look at. I might answer your question, Senator Bragg, in terms of that third category, so member outcomes and trustees' use of members' money. We have several programs of supervisory work that we use to supervise to that. The first is we have a broad thematic piece of work going on that is interrogating whether funds have in place adequate expenditure frameworks, policies in place, and we are interrogating that through the actual expenditure decisions. There are approximately 14 trustees in that cohort of work. We also, on a one-on-one basis, if we have a heightened area of concern, we will do what we call a prudential review, which means we will go into a super fund and delve quite deeply into specific areas of risk, including expenditure, should that be required.
And in that, you're including the example where there could be a conflict of interest between the trustee also having their own scheme, for lack of a better expression.
So the expenditure management frameworks that we assess include whether funds appropriately manage conflicts of interest.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, Senator Canavan, one question.
I've been contacted by some people saying that the banks have cold called them personally to offer 5% deposit loans. Have you heard such reports, and is there any restrictions or oversight from yourself against stopping the banks cold calling customers to offer a product that they don't take a lot of risk in?
I'm not aware of that, Senator.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Senator O'Neill, very quickly.
Hopefully I'll try and bring us home. So I just want to put three quick ones on notice with regard to my first set of questions around the 24th of January 2023 statement. I asked a few already, but can I ask also what was your response to the receipt of the independent review? Any correspondence to Diversa and the reviewer? Any emails internally regarding Diversa, and what action did you take after considering the independent review? So those for that. Going back to that, noting that you talked about highly coordinated response with ASIC, I note that in October 2023 there was a federal court ruling involving Diversa. ASIC had taken it to court in 2021 over whether it had breached its duties as a trustee in relation to a representative who breached financial service laws. In that matter, ASIC were unsuccessful. We know they very, very rarely bring give serious consideration to any matters that they might bring. So that's happening. You're talking to ASIC. You've already put Diversa licence conditions in place in January of 2023. You've also issued the super performance review in August. You've expressed concerns about the platform. And then on top of that, there's this federal court ruling in which ASIC's taken legal action. So my question is, given all of that, what actions did APRA take at that period of time?
So, Senator, I'm going to ask my colleague to give you some information, but I do have to point out that my comments about coordination with APRA were made in the later context of SHIELD.
Coordination with ASIC, you mean?
ASIC, yes,
Yeah.
of SHIELD and First Guardian. So you're taking a comment that I made in relation to something and applying it to something else. So I just need to correct that.
Okay.
Senator, I might make probably 4 comments, and I've reflected on your earlier questions, and I'm going to try and answer some of those, again, mindful of our secrecy obligations. So I mentioned in broad terms what we focus on when we supervise super funds. Yeah. In relation to the media release that you referred to, so the work we did in 2022 focused on the second and third components that I mentioned, so operational resilience and member outcomes. So specifically product performance and fees. So that's clearly articulated in the media release. In 2023, APRA reviewed its investment governance standards and we updated those. We then conducted a review across all trustees in the industry to assess their adherence to those uplifted standards.
So where did Diversa fall in that?
So I can't comment on, so I mentioned the secrecy provisions that I'm bound by, Senator, so I'll make some broad comments and then...
Can I get you to give me the detail of the broader stuff on notice, because I'm limited for time?
Yep.
It's Diversa that I really need to know about.
And I can't comment on specific entities, Senator, unless we're already in the public domain, but I'll just make 2 more points. You did mention the performance test. In 2023, we tested choice trustee-directed choice products for the first time. We got insight from that. We got insight from our broad review. Mr Lonsdale mentioned the valuations and liquidity assessment we performed across all trustees. We also got insights from that. All of those insights informed the design of the detailed assessment that we've just conducted on the top 10 platform trustees. And that particular review was specifically targeted at assessing investment governance capability. So you mentioned Diversa's licence conditions. They were specifically not focused on that. They were focused on operational resilience and member outcomes.
Okay. So what I don't understand, for ordinary people who are caught up in this and investing, they think that you're looking over this sector. You tell me that you're interacting with ASIC and that together you're providing a secure system. But you can't tell me anything about Diversa, but you do know that there were problems there already. That's a matter of public record. You responded to that. ASIC had actually started taking actions against some of the First Guardian and Shield funds and their promoters as early as 2022. I want to assume that you must have known something about that. And if you didn't, I would say that that is a serious failing. The 15th of August, they banned the Financial Services Director. They follow up on the 7th of February 24 to put stop orders on Shield Master Fund. They freeze the assets. ASIC also freeze the assets of the First Guardian Master Fund and its director. What was APRA doing all this time in its highly coordinated work with ASIC? Were you completely oblivious to what was happening with First Guardian and Shield?
Senator, we were not completely oblivious because as those things started to develop, we were taking our own regulatory action.
That's what I want to know. Like, what did you actually do?
Well, the first thing we did when we became aware of the Macquarie Investment Management and Shield matter
which is when?
I think I mentioned it earlier. It was December 23.
Yep.
So when we were first aware of that, we required Macquarie to have an independent report. When we got that independent report, we shared it with ASIC, and that informed their ongoing work.
And did you ask the same of Net Wealth, Diversa and Equity Trust? And if not, why not?
So the next one we became aware of, you're quite right, was First Guardian. And in that context, that's where we had extensive discussion with ASIC about letting them take the lead on the enforcement actions they were looking into and preparing.
Okay. Well, I just want to table two things. One is the document that I was just referring to, and finally, if I can, table the chronology that ASIC provided to the Parliamentary Joint Committee to give you an idea of the kind of response that I'd like to understand what APRA's action were, particularly with regard to Diversa. I think the scale of this demands that we actually get that information. And
Senator O'Neill, can I ask you to vote that?
Last question. So I note that APRA is actually operating a surplus in the last financial year. Do you believe that sufficient resourcing has been provided to monitoring for-profit retail superannuation trustees, which I understand is a growing cohort within your area of regulation?
Senator, thanks for your question.
That's
you did run
last
an
one, thanks.
operating surplus. I think what's important to note about the operating surplus is that there's a number of factors that feed into that surplus that do go to money that cannot be repurposed for other things, and over-collection of revenue as well, and that makes up the vast bulk of the surplus that we generate. The actual residual is a very small amount. I can assure you, Senator, that our supervisory frontline staff are fully employed on all the priorities that we need to look at, including the issues that you've been asking us about.
So on the basis of that response, I will hope to get a whole lot more information about Diversa.
We're very happy to come back, Senator, and give you on notice what we can give you with the constraint of the secrecy provisions, but we will do our best to come back.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes our session with APRA. Thank you. We will now move to the Australian Securities and Investments Commission, and while they join us at the table, we'll just table the two documents that Senator O'Neill referred to, and there is also an opening statement from ASIC that has been circulated, so we can incorporate that into Hansard as well. And I can also let the committee know that we will be releasing the Commonwealth Grants Commission. So that's caught us up 20 minutes. Thank you for that, colleagues. So you can let them know. At this stage, yes.
Hello. Hi. How are you? Yeah, no, I had 10 minutes before you wanted yours. No, I would.
I've been, so we've had 39 minutes in total for the whole day.
I get it.
That's, yeah, and that's including that last bit. I've been trying to keep a tally and keep under control.
39 minutes is not enough for me to be unleashed properly, Matt. I need a few hours. I'm pretty sure.
Just saying I kept my side of the bargain.
No, you did. And ABS is still coming. A little bit on supermarket investing in foreign oil.
I can't see how we get it.
All right.
You go, do your housing first.
Okay.
I hope so.
So the committee now welcomes representatives from the Australian Securities and Investment Commission. I note that you have tabled an opening statement. Is there anything that you would like to say before we move to questions, Mr. Longo?
Senator, I know it's been a long day for everyone, so I understand my opening statement has been given to the committee, and as a small gesture of cooperation with the committee, I'm proposing not to read it out unless you would prefer me to do so.
We would be very grateful if, I'm sure senators have had it for a little bit of time, so they may well have already had a look at it.
There's no absolutely new material in there. It's all in the public domain. So if it's okay with you, Chair, now would you like me to introduce who's here, or are we...
I think as we go through, people will just introduce themselves when they ask questions. When they answer questions, will be fine.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
So I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Senator Bragg?
Nice to see you again. Now, the Help to Buy system across this issue. The proposal that the government will own up to 40% of your house.
I think I can say on behalf of the Commission there's not an issue that we know much about or indeed have a view about.
Okay, you've got a lot of people here. If someone here could talk about it?
About what about it?
Yeah.
They don't have policy responsibility for a shared
Well, they
equity
look after
scheme.
the credit laws and they
Right.
advise your
Okay, so we're getting a bit more specific there. Anything else? Like, can we
they
narrow
advise
it
your
to
government
ASIC?
not to exempt it.
Sorry?
You know the Help to Buy program that you've got?
I do, but what
where
was your
you
question?
want to co-own the houses with people.
It's a shared equity scheme.
You like buying houses, don't you?
It's a shared equity
Yeah.
scheme. It's not uncommon.
Anyway, well, in that scheme, the ASIC recommended that the government not exempt Help to Buy from the credit laws. So, someone here can talk about that?
Well, I'm happy to ask Commissioner Kirkland if he can offer any insight on that question. But
Thank you very much.
Perhaps I'm not aware of the advice that you're speaking of, Senator, so I think we'd have to take it on notice if there's a specific question.
Okay, that's a good start. I'll ask about something else. It's going well so far. What's that?
Please keep going.
I can't hear you, sorry. If you're going
Try not to respond.
If you're going to be heckling, you need to raise your voice, otherwise you can't hear. Okay, now what about these sanctions on the Russian oil? Do you know anything about this?
I can answer that question, Senator.
Okay, so do you want me to ask the question?
So, in terms of the
I haven't asked the question yet.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
So the question is, what are you doing, if anything, to ensure that Australian financial services providers meet their obligations not to continue Vladimir Putin's war?
I think it's quite a broad question, and I think that much of that question is probably better posed to DFAT and those who look after sanctions. But if you're referring to the recent adverse media news and reporting about potential holdings of, through fund managers of investments that maybe have relationships with Russian oil, that is largely a matter for DFAT and for sanctions law, and therefore ASIC has, I think, had some early engagement with DFAT, and so therefore we'll have very limited to say and we'll defer the questions there. We can confirm, however, that we will also look at and are looking at whether there is any relationship to disclosures and disclosures made by funds in that regard. That's as narrow and as specific as our role would be with regard to sanctions.
Okay. Look, Chair, I'm going to hand you back the call because I'll try and find the documents and I'll give ASIC some time to try and find some information about this Help to Buy thing.
That's very helpful, thank you. Senator Pocock. D. Senator Pocock, D.
Thank you for your time this evening. Mr. Longo, I just wanted to follow up on two issues, please. The first is around Consolidated Builders Limited, which I know I've raised with you a few times already and have met with you about this and recently sent you a letter on the 17th of September. And I'm just interested if you can provide any updated advice on what steps ASIC is taking or intending to take in relation to the alleged unlawful issuance of options, misleading financial disclosures and shareholder value transfers as related to CBL.
Senator, you're right, we did meet about that and we wrote about it subsequently. We don't have, as we speak this evening, any additional information nor have we taken any further action beyond what we discussed with you at that meeting and confirmed in writing. In these kinds of circumstances, normally I would say we'll take it on notice, but I think the short answer is we have not taken the matter any further since the meeting we had with you and confirmed by letter. Now, I'm happy to take on notice whether that remains the case, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. I've just checked with my Deputy Chair, but perhaps that's pretty much the best I can do this evening, I'm afraid.
So since then I wrote to you about one of the major shareholders who's also come forward alleging issues, and I'm just wondering, you look at this case and it seems like there are very clear questions to be answered, and you have multiple shareholders now saying dodgy stuff has gone down, and yet you have ASIC who just kind of say, well, sorry, like it could be bad, but we're not gonna investigate it. Like, what is the threshold to action? I thought, who do these people go to if they can't get ASIC to help them out?
Well, as a general principle, ASIC does not get involved in shareholders' disputes.
It's far beyond shareholder disputes. It's around the issuance of options, misleading financial disclosures, shareholder value transfers.
These are all commercial matters that shareholders sometimes complain about, but as a general principle, we do not get involved in every shareholder set of concerns or complaints with the company in which they're shareholding. Now, I think we're happy to take this question on notice and look at it more, but we're very selective in the matters that we resource for investigation. One of the reasons the sort of matter that you're describing would not be resourced for investigation is because it is a private matter among shareholders, the outcome of which does not have a widespread impact in terms of our enforcement priorities and in terms of widespread wrongdoing and impact on consumers.
So if you're the regulator, so who does, may not have a widespread impact, but for the gentleman that we've discussed, he's facing potential bankruptcy. This is very, very material, and you're the regulator. So, if you're not going to help out, who's going to help out?
Senator, we are the regulator. We are the regulator. We get thousands of issues brought to our attention a year. We're resourced to investigate between 200 and 300 of them. We listen, we try to help to the extent we can, but we're not a complaint handling authority. We can't intervene in every corporate issue in the country. We're not resourced to do that, and it's not our mandate. Not our mandate. It doesn't mean we're disinterested in hearing from people with these kinds of issues, but I hope you can understand that we can't intervene in every matter that's brought to our attention. The system simply doesn't work that way.
Sure, but aren't you the regulator? Like who else?
Yes, we are the regulator, but we are resourced to deal with a fraction of the matters
10%.
that are brought to our attention.
So the other 90%, unlucky.
Well, there are lots of issues in the community where people suffer loss and have concerns. But we're not here to deal with each and every one of them.
But there's a clear delineation between people who lose money and people who lose money due to illegal activity in corporations. And I would assume you go and talk to ASIC. ASIC look into it. If there is something that is clearly illegal, which I'm obviously not an expert in this, but from what I've seen, there is more than enough evidence to suggest that there's some serious wrongdoing and laws have been broken. And you're saying even if you can see that, yes, there's probably a good case here, due to resourcing, you just say, sorry, we can't.
Well, no, what I'm saying is that these allegations and concerns are raised with us in order to satisfy ourselves that there is actionable evidence that could take the matter any further, requires a lot of resources. Now, individuals often feel as if things are obviously illegal and obviously wrong, but in our system of law, things that are obvious still require evidence, and they still require materiality thresholds that we need to respect. So we're not disinterested in issues of this kind, but many of them will not be resourced for investigation because they simply do not meet our internal thresholds. Now, I don't know whether Deputy Chair Corr can add to that response.
But I'm really trying to understand here, because this is not just a private matter. These are breaches of regulations, and so who do they go to? Well, in Australia.
Well, they're alleged breaches, and secondly,
but who do they go to with those alleged breaches?
If they feel strongly about it, they can instruct solicitors and take the matter on themselves.
Why should they have to if we have a regulator who's meant to be looking at these things?
Well, as I said earlier, the regulator is not our mandate, nor are we resourced to take on private disputes among shareholders with their companies.
This is not a dispute, though. This is clear wrongdoing. You have multiple shareholders, majority shareholders, alleging illegal activity.
That, as I've tried to explain, we are not resourced, nor is it our mandate to take on every matter of that nature.
So it's a resourcing issue.
And secondly, people often bring things to our attention that may appear obvious to them as illegality and wrongdoing, but still requires evidence. People have to give statements, documents have to be collected, that evidence has to be admissible. It's a very resource-intensive exercise.
Sure.
So, as a chair, I don't think I can take that response any further.
Sure.
I have offered the senator a response to a question on notice where I can confirm whether ASIC has taken any of the recent correspondence any further. But as presently, my present understanding is we haven't taken the matter any further, Senator, since the day we met with you in your office.
I guess, so this gentleman has gone to court, and the court said that he met 4 of 5 criteria, and the 5th criteria of the court that the court ultimately looked at and failed is that bringing the matter wouldn't be good for the company. So, it sounds like this is where the regulator should be playing a role. I take it that maybe this is a resourcing issue, but I just want my displeasure.
Well, it's in part a resourcing issue, but it's also in part a judgment that, as the regulator, we have to make daily as to what matters we take an interest in, beyond receiving the information and not. And from what I'm trying to say with great respect, Senator, is that the matter you're describing is not a matter that would meet our normal resourcing and criteria for taking matters on. We are the regulator,
Sure.
but I think it's a little bit unreasonable to expect the regulator to take on every issue that's brought to our attention.
And so,
that's not our remit.
Okay.
It's not. If you look at Section 1 of the ASIC Act, it's not our mandate, and we're certainly not resourced to do it.
Okay, I've got another case I'd like to ask about.
Yes.
Just before I ask that, so what is the threshold? How many people does it need to affect for you to investigate? Is there a person number or a value?
Senator, I wonder if I can assist a little bit with your queries here, and sorry to cut across you, Chair. Scott Gregson, Chief Executive Officer of ASIC. You wrote to us on these matters in September, and I provided a response to you at that time. Probably not matters to air in this forum, but we set out a number of those factors that we took into account. And indeed, I think I'm Canberra-based, so have offered to attend and assist you further with that. Just making sure you've got that correspondence, because we have sought to be as helpful as we can in terms of setting out the factors we took into account in our position. And being willing to put forward people to come and talk to you or your office, or indeed your those that you're supporting.
Sure. Thank you for the response. That doesn't stop this gentleman from going bankrupt, though.
You're at 10 minutes, Senator.
Okay. So the other matter I'd like to ask about is the former operators of Brindabella Christian College, which I think traded as Brindabella Christian College Education Limited. This company went into administration in March 2025, owing almost $24 million to creditors. And as I understand it, Deloitte, as liquidators, provided their statutory report to ASIC on the 6th of October and have also lodged a supplementary report. Can anyone confirm if that's correct?
Can you give us any information on that? We'll have to take that matter on notice, okay. Senator Pocock.
If you can take on notice what's happening there, but I guess along and this has been publicly reported. On this matter, though, I guess kind of going back to what we were just talking about with Consolidated Builders Limited. I've seen correspondence where whistleblowers at the school contacted ASIC in September 2021 about a range of concerns about BCEL, the board chair in particular, around financial viability, conduct of the chair and the board. And it now seems from the liquidator's report all of these concerns were very well founded, and yet in your response, this is 4 years ago, we could have avoided a lot of pain for thousands of 1,000 students and their families. You say, we have considered all the information provided and conducted our own preliminary and confidential inquiries. Following careful consideration, we have decided not to escalate your concerns with another team or take further action at that time. It appears that was not the right decision. Would you agree?
Senator, I can't agree to that last proposition. I'd have to look at that correspondence and get my team to look at it.
Sure, maybe I'll notice then. But in general terms,
it might be helpful to repeat that in any single year we might get up to 10,000 reports of misconduct.
Sure,
we get thousands of reportable situations. We have to make judgments based on the information we're provided, the resources we have, the enforcement priorities we have. We cannot be everywhere. Now, in the matter that you've mentioned, I'm quite happy to take it on notice, and ASIC will review the correspondence from 4 years ago. We're not briefed this evening to be able to give you a substantive answer, but we will take your question with great respect and look at it seriously, and we'll answer it in that way, and we'll take it from there.
I mean, it just seems like in the other case they basically got the same response, and now we know with Brindabella there were enormous issues that felt very squarely in ASIC's domain, and you just kind of fobbed it off and said, yeah, sorry, but this is not something we're going to look into. So what steps will you take to actually review this and learn from it?
Well, a couple of points. We will review it and respond, as I've said, on a question on notice. But I hope I'm not saying anything new in saying there are thousands of matters.
You've made that very clear.
And there will be thousands more where we will not take action because we don't think it's appropriate to, given our enforcement priorities, our responsibilities and our mandate and the resources we have. We are not resourced. It is not the role of the regulator to save every business from loss, every creditor from loss and every shareholder from loss. That is not the role of the regulator.
But
now, I know that's an inconvenient sort of proposition, but I really want you to know that we take extremely seriously everything that's brought to our attention, and then we have to make judgment calls as to about what we'll take action on and what we won't. It doesn't mean any disrespect to people who've lost their money or to people who have concerns. I'm just trying to be realistic and honest with the committee.
But Mr Longo, when it comes to Brindabella, since you replied and said, oh, sorry, we're not going to investigate, they received $40 million worth of Commonwealth money in that time.
Yes.
Ended up with a massive debt. All of the concerns that were raised with you turn out to be true. And so I understand you take 10,000, reports of misconduct. Surely you're not getting that many from schools where you have like very good evidence that's laid out. I've seen the letters. And so I just have real concerns when I'm having all these, seem like very good cases that fall squarely in ASIC's remit. And you just sort of just fobbing them off like, not our job. We get thousands. We take on a few hundred.
It's not my intent to fob them off, Senator.
That's
but
what
it is my
like
intent to explain the system. And the letters are not evidence. Letters are not evidence. And I absolutely accept people lose money. They have problems as a shareholder. But we are not in a position to take on every cause of every person, including Christian colleges. I'm sorry to be so frank, but it is a realistic statement of fact. And so I'm happy to ask my team to write to you or to the committee and provide more detail and elaboration of how we go about choosing matters for investigation. But the people in Australia will continue to lose money from investments for whatever reason, and there'll be many situations where ASIC will not be able to intervene. We are not able to make people whole. That is the practical reality. Now, but I certainly wouldn't want you to think we're fobbing people off. That is, I reject that characterisation. We have a very dedicated team that look at reports of misconduct. We're constantly reviewing our systems and processes. In fact, even recently, we've had an uptick in reports of misconduct because we've made it easier for people to tell us about them. We've made improvements to our website. So I think I really don't want you thinking we're fobbing anybody off. That's not how we feel.
That's not how I feel. That's how they feel.
Okay, we're going to have to move on.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We'll go back to Senator Bragg if you want to finish your line of questioning.
I've provided the document. Have you got the document now?
Which document
okay.
is that?
All right. Well, we might come back then because it's being printed, I understand. So, Senator Sharma?
It's coming.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair. Good evening.
Senator?
Thanks for your opening statement. I just wanted to ask some questions about First Guardian and Shield. I'm sure I won't be the only one. Just looking through the questions we put in on notice following the last appearance of ASIC here, and particularly the one, I think it's SBE 059, which asks for a timeline of all communications regarding potential issues with First Guardian and Shield and the date of those communications. I know ASIC's provided a response there, but I don't believe we were provided with the detail we asked for, which was a date of all communications regarding potential issues with First Guardian and Shield. We've been given the high-level summary, which I believe you provided to the Corporations and Financial Services Committee as well. Is there a reason you chose not to provide that?
I don't know whether ED enforcement. Chris, do you want to have a first response to that, or would it be Deputy Chair Court?
Senator, I think we felt we answered the substance. For the transcript, Christopher Under, Executive Director of Enforcement Compliance. The substance of the question, Senator. A couple of reasons for not providing the detail. I think the first is it was a very broadly put question, and I think it's received communications regarding potential issues with First Guardian or Shield. As our response says, many of the reports of misconduct we received didn't mention Shield or First Guardian at all, but clearly, with the benefit of hindsight, involved people that invested their money via those, say, for example, lead generators into First Guardian or Shield. So I think it would take us an enormous amount of time to collate and be thorough in providing that response to the committee in circumstances where we are working around the clock to enforce the law and hold those that have been involved in wrongdoing or alleged wrongdoing to account.
Okay, you weren't asked to remove these details from an earlier draft or anything else?
No, Senator.
No, you didn't provide a draft of the response to the Treasurer's office?
I don't believe so.
Okay. If you could take that on notice, though.
Yeah, but certainly it wasn't. I can assure you it wasn't removed at the request of any minister or any office of a minister.
And sorry, just to paraphrase, are you saying it would be not possible to comply, or just resource intensive to do so? I mean, because you did say that some of the communications did not specifically mention First Guardian or Shield, but with the benefit of hindsight, it's clear they were referring to it or related to it.
Not referring to it, but related to it. And I guess, potential issues could mean many things. So it would be, I think, in our view, an unreasonable diversion of our resources to comply. And I think we would, in order to ensure that we were accurately and comprehensively responding to the committee.
Okay. Did you do such a search of the communications you had, though, before reaching that conclusion?
We did, and and I think we have compiled, I think, in a submission to the PJC, and had
the high-level chronology.
Yes, involving key contacts.
Yeah. No, I'm familiar with that. Okay. Thank you. I'll move on just in the interest of time. I understand that a company called Audit Services Plus Proprietary Limited was the auditor for First Guardian and lodged financials on its behalf for several years. Is that ASIC's understanding as well?
And
sorry, Senator Sarah Court, Deputy Chair of ASIC. So what did you say the name was?
Yeah, it's a company called Audit Services Plus Proprietary Limited.
As an auditor of First Guardian Master Fund. So,
that's right.
Senator, the information I have here is different to that. The information I have is that First Guardian Master Fund and its responsible entity, Falcon Capital Limited, was audited by a firm called Auditeo, Audit EO is the spelling, Australia. And we are currently investigating 2 individuals associated with that firm.
Okay. Look, the extract I've got here, and I'm happy to table this is managed investment scheme extract, which lists the responsible entities, Falcon Capital Limited, but lists the scheme auditor, which is, I presume, is what you've got as Audit Services Plus Proprietary Limited of 88 Phillip Street, Parramatta. Not the same address, is it?
I again have to take that on notice as well, Senator. I don't have that name here. Whether they're related companies or at the same address, I'd have to find out.
Okay, look, I might put in some more detail on notice then, but
thank you.
It's my understanding as well that this company, Audit Services Plus Proprietary Limited, which was at least for some period the auditor of First Guardian, was deregistered in June 2022. Now, I believe it was it continued to be listed as the auditor for First Guardian Master Fund subsequent to its deregistration, but you're not familiar with these circumstances, and I appreciate you might not be. I'm happy to provide.
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me, that information in front of me, Senator.
Okay, all right, I'll put some more.
Senator, if I could just add, I understand it's a form lodgement issue. They may have been listed on the form that was lodged, but I think I can confirm that the appointed auditor of Falcon was Auditeo or Audit EO, but happy to take that on notice and confirm it.
Okay, yeah, look, it's my understanding Auditeo was their most recent auditor, but for 2 years, I think roughly from 2022 to 2024, it was this Audit Services Plus Proprietary Limited. But look, I am happy to put in some requests for information on notice for that. Then I was just curious about the ASIC's use of its Section 601 FF power. Is this the Managed Investment Scheme Investigation power? Am I describing that correctly?
That's right, Senator.
Okay. Has that power been explicitly used in connection with First Guardian and Shield, this investigative power?
Senator, I'd like to take the question on notice just to confirm what I'm about to say is accurate. My understanding is it wasn't used. However, we used other powers which are broader, and we do use 601 FF if I'm recalling the correct section, but that is about obtaining information to ensure that a managed investment scheme is complying with its constitution or its compliance plan. So it's quite narrow, whereas we utilised powers like 912C, which are broader. It allows us to ask any question about any matter with respect to the operation of a licensed entity.
Okay. So, yeah, so my understanding is 601 FF are largely information gathering.
So I guess just to clarify that the fact that we didn't use 601 FF doesn't mean, we weren't looking. We were just using broader, more effective powers to obtain the information we needed, including, I should say, information that was provided to us on a voluntary basis. So we often ask for information without the need to use powers.
Okay. All right, I'll move on. Thank you. Just the... I think I got the terminology correct here. The Section 912C notice that you issued to Macquarie. When was that on the... Is that the 2020... That's the 2023 entry on your timeline. ASIC issues notice to Macquarie in relation to Shield Master Fund May 2023. That was a Section 912C notice, is that?
That's right.
That's right.
Okay. I believe in response to a question on notice, you were asked why ASIC did not inform other platforms at the time, which could have protected many investors, and the response was that you had no information at the time to suggest the Shield Master Fund was available on other platforms at that time. Is that correct characterisation of your answer?
Senator, no, I don't think it is a correct information. I think it's more accurately described as we didn't have sufficient information to hold concerns sufficient to take action in relation to the Shield Master Fund. So by way of for example, a stop order which we issued in February of 2024. Just to be clear in relation to that 912C notice, 912C is a power that allows us to ask questions of a licensee. Here what we were doing is, at this point, we did not hold concerns in relation to Macquarie itself, nor were we tipping off or giving Macquarie notice that we had any concerns in relation to Shield. What we were asking Macquarie to provide us was information about the funds invested in the Shield Master Fund through Macquarie's platform and the names of the relevant advisors. So we were building a picture of where monies were coming in to the master platform that Macquarie had. So this is not a tip-off. Now, it may well have alerted Macquarie to our interest, and Macquarie may have acted off the back of receiving this notice, but the suggestion, I think, that's being made perhaps by other trustees that we were in a position to warn them, I don't accept, on the basis that we were, at that point in time, really just still trying to understand the basic facts.
Okay, so you didn't believe you had justification or sufficient information to alert other trustees at the time? That's right. Well, and sufficient information to act publicly in a way which requires evidence in order to, for example, issue a stop order. Yep, I understand that and I accept that justification. Thank you for that explanation.
You're at 12 minutes.
Could I have just one last question?
One more. Yeah, thanks.
Just briefly, the enforceable undertaking that's been concluded with Macquarie Investment Management Limited. Does ASIC have any concerns because of the nature of this enforceable undertaking, which, as I understand it, requires Macquarie to repay investors capital contributed minus withdrawals but not their total financial loss? Did ASIC give consideration to the possible harmful precedent this creates and that major institutions could in future admit fault and repay capital only and avoid penalties? What were the considerations that went into that decision to conclude the enforceable undertaking?
I'll take that, Senator Sharma. I think it's important to recognise, and I think we made this clear when we released our media release about this outcome, that we see this as an exceptional circumstance that we were dealing with in this in these situations, dealing with Shield and First Guardian. These are investors who have moved their funds, as I think we've talked about in various forums, from a regulated super trustee into a platform on another regulated super trustee, and who had the belief that their funds were safe. We have taken action against two of the trustee platforms involved, Macquarie being one, Equity Trustees being the other, and we have publicly advised that we are looking at other platforms as well, in particular Net Wealth and Diversa.
Yep. The other two trustees, yeah.
We took the view in this case that rather than proceed with contested court proceedings and seek the imposition of a significant pecuniary penalty, that in the circumstances of this case there was a strong public interest to get a timely court-based outcome that would give certainty and a definite outcome to these investors. That is, that Macquarie had undertaken to restore in full the capital that those investors had lost through the failure of the Shield Master Fund. There are court proceedings that accompany the undertaking, Senator, so we have gone to court alleging that Macquarie has contravened the law, and as I say, we've taken the unusual step of saying if you pay that full $321 million that Macquarie had to fund itself, then we won't seek a penalty in this amount. I've sort of heard some of the earlier discussions, Senator, about moral hazard and concerns. I think they're fair questions to ask. I would not think this should set any precedent at all for this kind of approach. As I say, our primary concern is to get money back quickly into the hands of these investors, and indeed they were paid within days, and those investors are very grateful for that outcome.
And is this a decision ASIC is this within your purview entirely, or do you consult with the Treasurer, the Assistant Treasurer's office? This
is a decision of the ASIC Commission that we would accept an undertaking so long as those payments were made to investors in full. As is normal, we brief officers, Senator, about significant outcomes like this one, but the decision is made by the Commission.
Okay, so you brief them about the fact of the decision, you don't consult them about...
Indeed, and we do that with all significant matters, of course.
Thank you. Thanks for your indulgence, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Cole.
Thank you. I'm mindful that we need to go for another break, and we've got Senator Bragg, Senator Pocock and Senator Hume.
I might have some questions too.
Okay, Senator O'Neill. So
I'm going to be here all night. I'll ask some questions.
Maybe what we can do is, Senator Bragg, do you want to finish off yours? Yeah, 2 minutes. And then we'll go to you. Okay.
We'll have a break.
Might be barking up the wrong tree.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
All right, let's go here.
Okay, so have you got a document now?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so this is about Help to Buy. This is a government program where they own up to 40% of your house. So you know about that idea?
I'm aware of the idea, yes.
Yeah, okay. So who works at ASIC Regulatory Reform and Implementation?
So that's a team that coordinates a lot of our policy advice.
Who's it report to, you?
No, it reports to the Executive Director of Regulation and Supervision and through to the CEO. That's Peter Soros.
Okay. So do you know anything about this exemption request?
I do now, Senator, having seen the document and just received some further information.
My questions are, did you recommend to the government that it not exempt Help to Buy, or did you recommend that it should proceed with its exemption?
I'm not aware that we made a recommendation either way, Senator, from the information I have in front of me now. Looking at the documents that have been provided, which I understand to have been in response to an FOI request to Treasury, it appears that ASIC was asked for to provide red line comments, which is typically at a stage where we're asked to provide assurance on legislation, and the nature of the advice that we provide at that stage is not about the merits or what the government should or should not do, because they're generally policy matters for the government. The nature of the advice is typically whether you have any concerns about our ability to oversee the implementation of the amendments as proposed. So it's a technical type of advice rather than policy advice.
It says here in ASIC's letter back to the Treasury that this suggests a clear intention of the Parliament for the code to apply to credit provided by the Crown. End quote.
Can you just point me to the relevant section of the letter?
Page document 3, and it's...
Yes. Yes, I've got that document, Senator. I can't see those words, I'm sorry. Oh, right, sorry, I've just found it. Thank you. Yes, I think that reflects ASIC's understanding of the policy intent.
Okay, but the government have gone ahead with an exemption. Is your evidence that you didn't provide a recommendation as to whether it should be exempted or not?
As far as I'm aware, we did not provide such a recommendation. Given we've just quickly looked at this now, if I discover that that's incorrect, we'll be happy to correct it. But as I said, that's my understanding is that's not the nature of the advice that we were asked to provide at that point in time. It was advice, assurance advice about our ability to administer the legislation if enacted.
So last question. So from ASIC's point of view, you're happy with the government providing credit outside the usual flags that every other provider has to swim within?
I don't believe we have a view on that, Senator. That's a policy matter for the government.
Sounds like a very high conviction response. You have no view on it.
I'm not aware of it being an issue that the Commission has been asked to consider, Senator.
Thank you.
Senator Pocock.
Thanks, Chair. I've got questions about some specific PwC employees. In October estimates, the Tax Practitioners Board revealed it had issued 3 written sanctions to PwC employees in connection with the tax leaks scandal. These employees breached item 1 of the Code of Conduct relating to honesty and integrity. In an answer to question 269 on these issues, the TPB said that 2 of them are still employed at PwC. Has ASIC received any notification from PwC about the 3 employees who received written sanctions from the TPB?
Thank you, Senator Pocock. Kate O'Rourke, Commissioner. We will take your particular question on notice. I'm not currently aware of having received that notification. I understand implicit in your question is that perhaps the particular practitioners are not registered company auditors, they're tax practitioners. And so I think the answer is likely to be that ASIC has not received such a notification, because to the extent there are people obliged to provide us notifications, they're the registered company auditors. That's the part of the that cohort of PwC partners over whom we have notification requirements. So let me please make sure.
Okay, thanks for checking that for me. But if I understand correct, you're saying that you don't have a role in relation to tax
practitioners.
Okay, so let's go to auditors. I've got some questions about KPMG, who are embroiled in yet another cheating scandal. Reported in the AFR yesterday, in 2023 and 24, auditors at KPMG were caught using AI to effectively cheat on tests. We've previously established that ASIC only polices a sliver of consulting firm activities, but you do oversee the work of auditors, as I understand it.
I'm sorry to clarify, but we oversee the work or the registration process of the registered company auditors. So they are the very senior auditors who sign audit opinions, and they employ thousands of people who are called auditors, but who aren't registered company auditors and therefore don't have the obligation to notify us of. They don't do an annual review to us, which was where such a notification would be included. So if any of the people you're referring to are registered company auditors, then they would be required in their annual review to tell us if they've had a code of conduct or disciplinary action against them. But if they're more junior members of KPMG, then it becomes a question of whether the firm chooses to voluntarily give us that information. I would have to again take that on notice in relation to KPMG.
So you will get back to us as to whether you have had any notice from KPMG in relation to registered company auditors and their obligations.
Or indeed,
if they have voluntarily come forward
yes,
on
I
others.
take both of those on notice.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to take a 10-minute break now, and we will come back. I think there's still a few senators have questions for you, so if ASIC could hang around. So we'll be back at 8:37.
But if I have to put that on notice, I'll read all the shit.
I was just...
All right.
What's that?
No.
Barton have some.
No.
Nothing for Patrick to say. I've got like the world's shortest line, which is too nice that I do.
Great. All right. I think. Oh, what happened to the minister? She's
just getting a cup of tea. She just got
okay.
back. We're just waiting for the minister.
Oh, yeah. I was wondering. I knew there was someone listening.
She was.
She's flagging. She's just got to get a cup of tea.
Oh, fair enough.
It's
Yeah,
still
fair
8:30.
enough. Yeah.
Okay. She's making her way back. We'll kick off again with representatives from the Australian Securities and Investment Commission. So we've got going to Senator Hume.
Thank you, Chair. I think I am going to be exceptionally quick here. In fact, I may well be barking up the wrong tree, so bear with me. But what is ASIC's role, if any, in this issue around some of Australia's largest superannuation funds appearing to have indirect exposure to Russian oil reserves, despite the Australian sanctions regime? Is that something that ASIC looks into? Who's responsible for regulating organisations that breach sanctions?
Thank you, Senator. It's Simone Constant, Commissioner, for the transcript. In response to the question, thank you for the question. As you preempt, I think, in the question, ASIC does not regulate sanctions. The Sanctions Office of DFAT is probably the better place to refer specific questions about whether sanctions have been breached by an entity and in regard to their investments. That said, because we regulate disclosure, and if you're referring to the recent media reporting, adverse news about potential investments in an entity that may have potentially had adjacencies to sanctions and potential sanctions breaches, then we are aware of that adverse news and we have had an engagement with the Sanctions Office of DFAT and refer the question there and will look into whether there are any disclosures that have been made that have been breached.
So if I were coming back to the next estimates and were to follow up on this issue, what would be the questions that I would ask to ASIC to see where you got on this, following this up?
It would be whether there are any disclosure responsibilities that were breached by the entities that invested through the fund that is reported to have those holdings.
Which was IFM, yeah.
As reported.
As reported. Okay. All right. Thank you. That's it, Chair.
Thanks, Senator.
Thank you very much. Senator O'Neill.
Thank you
quick
very
as well.
much. And in the interests of time, I was going to ask some questions about ANZ, but we will be seeing you for the oversight hearing on Tuesday, so expect some questions around that. But I just want to understand the cousin-like relationship as it was described between APRA and ASIC. Ms Cole used the words that you have a highly coordinated response to the Guardian First Guardian Shield disaster. I mean, I'm so glad that some people have recovered some of their money, but the reality is there are, broken hearts. Families perhaps break up over the sorts of issues that they're confronting right now, having lost all of their retirement funds. So Diversa looks like they've been pretty bad for some period of time and have come to the attention of both APRA and ASIC. So when the cousins get together, I want to understand how you might talk about a recalcitrant like Diversa and what processes are in place to make sure that everybody's aware of who the baddies are.
Well, perhaps, Senator, thank you for the question. I can start and perhaps Commissioner Constant might add anything she wants to, given she's the expert on super. In relation to Diversa, I heard the evidence earlier in the evening that you referred to a court case ASIC had taken in 2021, which we unfortunately lost in 2023, but we certainly had concerns about the conduct that were the subject of those proceedings, but obviously respect the decision of the court and where it ended up. In relation to Diversa's involvement as a trustee in relation to the First Guardian Master Fund, obviously we have significant concerns about Diversa in that regard, and as I mentioned in my evidence earlier, we have an active investigation underway in relation to what we consider to be failures by Diversa in relation to the First Guardian Master Fund. In terms of our engagement with APRA, Senator, there is no doubt that APRA and ASIC liaise about a range of issues, including particular entities, on an extremely regular basis at all levels across both agencies. So the APRA members and the ASIC commissioners meet frequently. We have operational working groups. We have a enforcement standing committee that Deputy Chair Cole from APRA and I sit on, and co-chair that meets 3 or 4 times a year from memory. We have operational working groups at the team level. So I'd only support Deputy Chair Cole's evidence that we work extremely closely, both sort of broadly across the 2 agencies, but also in relation to sharing information to the extent that both of our statutory obligations and confidentiality requirements allow in relation to particular entities. Diversa is obviously the subject of conversation at the moment.
Not just at the moment, though. I mean, it sounds like there's a fair degree of formal and informal.
Indeed, there is.
Communications that go on a regular basis. So would it be fair to say that every week, perhaps, or every couple of weeks, certainly formally every quarter, you're meeting?
I would say almost every day,
right.
Senator, there would be interactions between Commissioner Constant, Commissioner O'Rourke, Commissioner Kirkland, whether it be insurance, on banking, on superannuation, on enforcement. There are a range of those standing committees that involve the members of APRA and the commissioners of ASIC. And then we're on the phone sharing information on a very regular basis.
So that confirms for me that it's unfathomable that there wasn't a conversation or many conversations about, hey, this Diversa. Like, I can just imagine walking into a meeting going, God, we're doing this work on Diversa. Have you heard about what's going on there? Because that is the nature of casual conversations, phone calls coming backwards and forwards, in addition to the formal matters that you're discussing. That's how we work together. We observe and we talk about things. Is it possible that APRA were not aware of what you were doing with Diversa?
Look, I'd have to let APRA give their own evidence on that, obviously, Senator. So in relation to the court proceedings that ASIC had in court that I think ran from 2021 through to 2023, yes, I'm sure that those particular matters that we were concerned about would have been the subject of discussion at our enforcement standing committee, as one of a number of agenda items. But in terms of discussions about that particular entity, sort of more broadly, whether formal or informal, I'd need to see if I've got any information about that, Senator.
Thank you. I'd appreciate if you could take it on notice.
And just to check that you're asking particularly in relation to Diversa, the entity?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because they were known to APRA. APRA had already sanctioned them by instituting an additional licence condition on them in early 2023. So from January 2023. They'd actually taken action. You were already onto it. So when we look at the timeline of the necessary sequencing of APRA action, ASIC action, there's kind of a bit of a staggered. I can't believe it's possible that there wasn't cross-conversation given the level of communication that you said you operate under. I also want to note that I did use your timeline as an instructive tool to hopefully give APRA the hint that we might need to get some information from them. And I would appreciate any support you could give to your cousin to help them get on board and give us information at the level that you have provided from ASIC with regard to Diversa. if I can just ask one question, you probably need to take this on notice.
Yes.
APRA had a lot to say about Macquarie, and when it all, came to a fever pitch that they got involved with Macquarie. I don't understand why they weren't equally involved with net wealth, Diversa and equity. I didn't get a sense of their engagement with that. Could you help me understand that? Has there been a formal agreement between APRA and ASIC with regard to who's going to do any of the work with regard to net wealth, Diversa and equity, or are APRA entitled to do their own inquiries and representations around those entities?
Well, again, Senator, why don't I start and others can jump in. I mean, I think it's fair to say, and I don't want to give evidence on behalf of APRA, but APRA obviously have a role in relation to a range of the entities that they prudentially supervise.
Yes.
And those entities that you have outlined will fall within that prudential remit. We have an overlapping jurisdiction in some ways, if you like, because we're the conduct regulator and we look at in particular in relation to superannuation, we are very concerned about potential investor losses. So it's not uncommon for ASIC to be looking at one suite of issues in relation to a particular entity, and that APRA has its own considerations going, through their different lens simultaneously. What we try to do, obviously, is to make sure that we do that as efficiently as we can, try to minimise regulatory burden on some of those entities and the like. So it's entirely possible for us to be doing our work and APRA to be doing their work. And as I said in my earlier evidence, that we communicate about that and liaise about what it is that we are doing. And that's very much what the entities that we both regulate expect of us.
Thank you. Did you want to add anything, Ms Constant?
Only to add add support to Deputy Chair Court's remarks about the level of engagement, and on the regulatory and supervisory side, just as the Deputy Chair has said, it would be inappropriate for me to give evidence for APRA, but refer, for example, to the comments they made about the platform operator review that they have underway and the investment governance review that they have underway in that regard. And of course, when they seek and look for support from the regulatory and supervisory teams within ASIC that work within superannuation, of course, all support given and cooperation willingly provided.
So one of the issues you might want to have a think about would be how much money has disappeared into individuals' pockets. What's the quantum of money with regard to Diversa? How much of the trustees received themselves? Because I know that APRA said that they're looking into expenditure, but there's expenditure and expenditure. Like when you're paying yourself in people's retirement funds for your own pleasure and joy, buying cars and things like that, that's truly extraordinary. I would hope that that's something that APRA is absolutely looking at.
So, Senator, I'll give you the information I've got in front of me at the moment, which may not be to the detail that your question seeks, but in relation to Diversa, we know that the overall amount invested through the Diversa platform is in the order of $305 million. Now, we also know that a percentage of monies that were invested through both Shield and First Guardian made their way to a number of entities and individuals, including, and I think we've talked before about all of the people in the chain of this misconduct, and that everyone was taking a clip along the way. So the advisors got a lot of money, the lead generators got a lot of money, and a lot of individuals involved got a lot of money, but I don't have the exact breakdown of those. I suspect that going right down to the individual level, Senator, may be more information than we perhaps have in any definitive way, but we can certainly find out as best we can.
If you could provide on notice as much detail as you can there, and,
yes.
And I'm sure that there'll be some questions to APRA about what they're doing about those monies, where they're going, how could that happen without them noticing? That's the kind of question I want to ask them, so I need the information if possible. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And with that, we have concluded with APRA. Thank you very much. Sorry, ASIC. Thank you.
They're cousins, Chair.
Yes. And we will now invite the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission to join us. While they're making their way to the table, I'll just note that we will table, that we'll incorporate into Hansard the document that was tabled by Senator Bragg. And we, just for senators present, there is an opening statement from the ACCC that you should have in front of you.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. No worries. Thank you, Sam. Thank you. Thanks for coming tonight. No. Yes.
We'll get started. The committee welcomes representatives from the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission. We have your opening statement here. We can incorporate this into Hansard. Is there anything that you would like to, would you like to speak to the statement, or are you happy to go to questions?
No, happy to go straight to questions. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. So first off, Senator Hume.
Yes, I have some very brief questions that I know it sounds naff. I'm literally asking for a friend, so don't ask me too deeply about what I mean, okay? These are specifically about the draft determination on voice interconnection. So I'm hoping there's somebody that's an expert here. I'm hoping the ACCC can first of all explain in simple terms the economic modelling that justifies a 75.6% cut to the fixed line FTAS rates, while the mobile MTAS equivalent is only cut by 24.4% over the same period. Does that make sense to somebody at the table?
And yes, it does. Commissioner
Excellent.
Breakey will be able to explain that in detail.
Thank you very much. This is a determination that we will be releasing soon, and it's about the origination and termination of mobile phone calls. Yeah. We have gone through a process of updating the modelling that sits behind it. We had been rolling forward for a number of years, I think maybe since 2011, the modelling. We've gone back in, given the fact that technology has changed so much in that time, and updated the modelling to reflect new technologies and new ways of communicating. Perhaps Ms Ross can help add additional detail.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the question, Senator Nicole Ross, Executive General Manager, Infrastructure Division. As Commissioner Breakey mentioned, we have gone back and reviewed our modelling. We've done that for both the mobile terminating access service and the fixed terminating and originating access service. The reason that the increase is so significant in relation to the fixed services is because the nature of the service has changed quite considerably since we last did that modelling.
Sorry, I'll just add it was a reduction.
It was, did I say increase?
Increase, yeah. Sorry.
Apologies. The reason that the reduction is so significant is that the original modelling related to packet switched networks, related to physical infrastructure networks over the public switched telephone network, or PSTN, so a lot of equipment. With the modern networks, it's packet switched networks that use the internet to deliver fixed voice calls, and so it's primarily a software cost, which explains why the cost reduction is so significant in relation to fixed services.
So these questions coming from Senator Cadell, who couldn't be here tonight. But he wanted to know whether the modelling is based on and the phrase he's used here is a modern, efficient operator.
That is correct.
That's right.
Yes. Did your model assume that the operator was a new entrant, or a major vertically integrated mobile network operator with massive economies of scale?
What we did was we assumed it's a hypothetical operator that we consider would be of scale to come in and contest the market.
Right. Okay. So in your modelling then, did you account for the fact that fixed-only providers can only offset these revenue losses by increasing pricing or withdrawing investment, while the three large mobile network operators, who are the main beneficiaries of the decision, have more levers and mechanisms at their disposal, such as mobile data?
I think the financial impact, well, we'll be putting out the decision soon. The financial impact actually differs between operators. Sorry, can you ask the start of that question again?
Did you account for the fact that fixed-only providers can only offset these revenue losses by increasing pricing or withdrawing investment?
We are aware of the financial implications of a changed price in this area, and I don't want to preempt the release of the report, but we have had regard to that.
Was the ACCC aware that this decision would directly threaten the viability of providers like Symbio and NetSIP that support millions of fixed voice numbers for critical emergency health and government services?
We are aware of the financial impacts of the decision that we are making, and we have had regard to them in making the decision.
And following the Optus outage, the nation's focus is clearly on network resilience. Why has the ACCC made a decision that removes the primary financial incentive for fixed-line providers to invest in that very resilience?
Our decision, one of the criteria that we have regard to is efficient investment in and use of the network, and that guided our decision-making.
Okay. Does that then necessarily mean that you have accepted that you'll probably force smaller fixed-only providers out of the market, reducing competition potentially and handing more power to the three large mobile operators?
I don't know. Sorry. We have criteria that we have regard to. We have balanced those, and we have had regard to the financial outcomes for a range of players in the industry. And one of the other factors that we have regard to is competition in the market.
Did the modelling adequately account for the fact that rural and remote Australians rely far more heavily on the fixed line services due to poor or non-existent mobile coverage?
Yes, we had regard to the market and what we thought was a hypothetical benchmark efficient operator.
And just to add to that, Senator, we have, in undertaking the modelling, looked at the cost of providing the relevant service, so we haven't adjusted for any change in service quality.
Right, so I think that you've just gone to my next question, which was, given the reliance, did you conduct any modelling on the specific impact that the 75.6% revenue cut would have on service continuity and additional investment in the bush?
We've looked at the cost of providing the service as defined, Senator. We've not adjusted for any reduction.
Okay. So can you assure this committee that your decision will not have a devastating and dangerous impact on rural and remote Australians by making their essential communications network less reliable?
Yes, because our decision is about promoting efficient investment in and use of the network, and that's what we're trying to achieve.
Right. Thank you. That was all the questions I had, Chair.
Thank you. Senator Sharma.
Actually, I'm happy to ask some questions, but did you have any, Senator Poper? Okay, I'll keep it short because No, you go first, because...
Okay, all right. Look, I just wanted to check in. I do think the ACCC's done some of the best work in government on energy markets in the past. I've often used the work you did on the cost of production for gas supply in Australia. Have you updated that in the last few years? The last time I saw that work was...
I'll answer that one as well.
Right.
We have done some work on the cost of gas production, and it will be in our next report to government.
So are these the quarterly reports? You're still doing those, or finished?
We are doing quarterly reports. It'll be in the December...
You aren't, sorry?
We are doing quarterly reports,
okay, right,
and there's one going to government relatively soon.
Right.
We have 2 additional pieces of work in that. One is, well, actually there's 3. One is some consideration of the LNG netback method. One is some consideration of gas production costs, and the third is some work in relation to the retailer selling guidance, retailer selling practice guidance that we had indicated previously that we would release. So we are asking some questions in our next report to engage with stakeholders on those 3 pieces of work.
Okay, so the gas production costs, is that going to be marginal cost curves for different
in effect,
fields,
yes.
or on a field-by-field basis?
I would just need to remember which, yes, but I can't remember the extent to which the public report will publicly identify those fields, so I'd have to come back to you on that.
It'd be good if it did, because there's vast differences, as you probably know, between coal seam gas, offshore gas, Cooper Basin, etc. The previous work you released publicly definitely did do that. I don't know what you can say, but as I mentioned, I thought that last bit of work, the last cost curves I can remember you releasing, are quite a few years old now, and since then we've had significant inflation. So can you give us an early indication of what's happened to the cost of production of gas in Australia in the past 5 to 7 years?
Look, that is preempting our report, which we're in the final stages. We have engaged a consultant to give us those numbers.
Okay, all right. So you give the report to the government in December, but there's no set release date?
The government has a set amount of days after we provide the report to them to release.
Okay.
But we will be delivering the report to government before Christmas.
How many days is that?
It's 28.
28 just days, not business days or anything? Just 28
just days.
Okay,
Yep.
all right, okay. What is the netback price at the moment in Australia?
I can refer you to that.
Or the latest you've got?
I think it was here. So as of the 1st of December, the netback price for 26 on average was $13.14 a gigajoule.
Okay, all right. And what sort of prices are we seeing prevail in Australian wholesale gas markets?
At the moment...
Senator, are you asking about contract or short-term?
No, well, whatever you've got, I was asking about short-term markets. The Wallumbilla price or the Sydney price? Or the
look, it's
Victorian.
around the $12 to $13 mark.
So it's pretty similar. Okay, all right. Okay, all right. Might leave it there for now. Thanks, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
Okay,
Yeah.
Senator Sharma.
All right, thank you. Good evening. Just had some questions about the commencement of the mergers, the new mergers regime on the 1st of January. I was just having a look again at the Assistant Minister's media release of the 15th of October, where he foreshadows changes that will be made to the scheme. What is the status of those amendments to the determination, and when do you expect them to be notified to the public?
The 2 issues that are subject of those amendments are in relation to the asset threshold and the control question. We understand that the draft legislation or the regulatory instrument will be released certainly in the next week or so, but I'll just throw to Mr. Loyner.
So, Tom Loyner, Executive General Manager of the Mergers and Exemptions area at the ACCC. So, I mean, I think Treasury responded to this earlier. I think they're anticipating mid-December for the release of that. They need to put it to the Assistant Treasurer to consider, and then it gets released. I would just note that there are a number of other issues that will also be covered in that amended instrument as well.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that, but finish your response and then I'll...
I mean, I can run through it. So it's going to include the control carve-in, which my colleague mentioned. The notification waiver form will be released in that. The notification waiver processes will be released in that. I would note that both of those have been released publicly, at least in near final form already. Simplifying the approach to monetary thresholds for asset acquisitions, streamlining the notification process for serial acquisitions. So if you have to notify in certain circumstances if you acquired businesses in the same market, going back over the last 3 years, it's removing things like where you didn't control that, or if you had since divested that interest. Refinements to the land property exemptions, some grandfathering provisions, tribunal fees, and superannuation successive fund transfer issues. So there's a whole range of sort of issues that are going to be covered in that instrument.
Okay. I did, the Minister's media release makes mention of exempting leases and other acquisitions of interest in land in the ordinary course of business unless subject to targeted notification requirements. So I just had a particular question. I noticed two of the transactions that appear on your register at the moment, just for phase one notification and approval, are acquisitions of warehousing facilities for Asahi, one in Redbank in Queensland, one in Deer Park in Victoria, which seems, I mean, obviously they were approved, I think, within the sort of 15 to 30 business day period. But are these the sorts of transactions that would be covered by that change, exempting leases and other acquisitions of interest in land, or not? Because it seems like, to me, this is sort of like a garden variety. A drinks company's acquiring a lease interest to build a warehouse to add in the distribution network. No competition concerns. The ACCC's findings make clear there's no competition concerns, but they're having to go through this notification process, 15 to 30 business days. Probably tens of thousands of dollars in lodgement plus legal fees, I'm guessing.
So the ACCC can't give legal advice on sort of individual examples of whether that specifically was in the ordinary course of business. I would note both of those leases were actually very significant transactions. Even, you know, Asahi is a big company, but they were both, there's very high lease payments involved in both of those businesses. Both were developing the site as part of the lease negotiation. Now, but you can imagine that a business engaging in regular leasing of sites, perhaps, you know, smaller sites than those, we can't give legal advice, would potentially likely be in the ordinary course of business.
So they might be exempted from the targeted notification requirements?
They will be, yes.
Okay, depending on the size and the scale. Okay. And then just the avoidance provisions, which I discussed with Treasury earlier this evening. Now, the Minister says in his media release the government will progress changes through amendments to subordinate legislation ahead of the commencement of the new merger control regime on 1 January 2026. But the avoidance provisions is not captured by that, is that right?
No.
I mean, was the intent to amend this avoidance provision before the commencement of the new scheme? That had been my understanding.
No, the automatic voiding issue is in the legislation itself, not
the subordinate legislation. Yeah. Okay. All right. So how will... what are the implications of those provisions remaining in, or being in force from the 1st of January until such time as the law is amended, which could take some time and is subject to a degree of uncertainty, and how will the ACCC manage those implications?
Well, it means that if you should have notified, your transaction met the thresholds and you didn't notify, the transaction is automatically void.
So you have no discretion there, do you?
No, we don't have to go and do anything. The party can go to the federal court and seek that automatic voiding doesn't apply. What third parties have been concerned about is that it creates situations where businesses, employees, etc., have all acted in a reliance on an acquisition having occurred, acted in reliance that this party owns that asset, and in fact it is void under the law, and that creates a lot of uncertainty, and that's what the stakeholders are really concerned about. Is there will be cases, I'm sure, where there will be some inadvertent situations where people should have notified and they didn't, and so that creates uncertainty there. But I would emphasise that there is a very fast-track process potentially to get a waiver where, so if someone is at least aware of the law and they're not sure whether they need to notify, they can seek a waiver to resolve that problem, and that removes that automatic voiding issue.
That gives them comfort or cover for that issue. Okay. Is it proposed, though, and I don't think Treasury had an answer to this, but if changes to the legislation are made, they will be retrospective, that is, they'll apply from the 1st of January 2026?
Well, some of them would only apply from the 1st of April.
I think this is a separate issue, actually, to that issue. But look, we don't have a view on whether it would be backdated or not. I mean, our point on automatic voiding is we understand the practical concerns that have been highlighted by a lot of stakeholders. We're open to exploring amendments, but we think we need to carefully, or the government exploring amendments, I should say, but we think the government will need to think carefully about whether those amendments they're changed in a way that we still maintain that strong incentive to notify, and whether there's some other tweaking required just to make sure that is that very strong incentive to notify, because that's why that automatic voiding was originally put in there.
To compel notification, yeah. Okay. All right, thank you. I just had one other question about the National Anti-Scam Centre, which might involve different subject matter experts. Good evening. I haven't been able to find a quarterly update from the National Anti-Scam Centre more recent than June 2024. Have I missed something?
Yes. So our quarterly update for up until the 30th of September was released in October through media release on our website. So the information was contained within that. I can provide some data about what it said, but it was released, yes, from up until the 30th of September recently.
So the Q3 2025 update's been released, and every quarter before that as well?
Every quarter before that as well.
Bad work on my part, on my office's part.
It's probably just in a different section of our website, so that might have been the issue.
Okay. All right, well, whilst I've got you, do you want to update me on the findings, just briefly?
Sure. So overall, what we're seeing in the first 3 quarters of this year is a decrease in the number of reports that we're seeing through the National Anti-Scam Centre Scam Watch website. So the number of consumers that have been reporting that they've been scammed has decreased. However, we've seen an increase in the number of the dollars that are actually associated with scams over that period of time, and in particular what we would deem as being online scams. So scams that are originating from online platforms, from advertisements online, from apps, etc., and they now make up around 45% of all scams.
Online scams?
Online scams,
okay.
Coming through to consumers, which is now the highest individual area of originating scams in Australia. So overall, as I've said, we've seen a decrease year on year of the number that have been reported, but we are seeing an increase in losses. As I said, through those digital platforms. What's interesting is that they are looking mainly at investment scams. So a lot of those types of online platforms are investment scams where consumers are investing a lot of money, hence the increase in the dollar amount over that period.
What's the average dollar value lost in the scam on the basis of what's the data set that's reported to you?
I can have a look at that. I think the issue is that we don't go on dollar values in terms of the average because of the investment scams and how significant they are as individual scams. I can provide the exact number that we've got in here if you just give me a second. So total losses over that period of time was $259 million. No, I'm sorry, I don't have the average at that point in time, mainly because what we use is potentially the midpoint, so I'd have to come back to you on exactly what the average would be.
Okay. And do you have any sense for the online scams, where they originate from? How many are outside Australia?
The estimate would probably be 99.9% of scams would be originating outside of Australia when they're through online platforms.
And are they mainly dealing in cryptocurrency or Bitcoin then?
No, not just crypto. We are seeing, investment scams being, perpetrated through cryptocurrency, but other mechanisms as well. So, yeah, it's a broad range, I'd suggest.
Okay.
You're at 10 minutes.
All right, I'll finish there. Just quickly, whilst I've got, I've just looked at your website, reports and publications, quarterly update, and if I do that, the latest quarterly update I see is April to June 2024, so I don't know where it is.
Yeah, we'll have to show you where it is then. It's,
okay.
It must be.
But you might just want to make sure, don't show me, make sure you show the public.
Yeah. Is that the NASC website you're looking at, or the Scam Watch website?
No, nas.gov.au,
okay,
and reports and publications, quarterly update, and it's the last one I can see there.
Yep.
Thanks for your time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think, Senator O'Neill, you had a couple of questions.
No, I do, actually. So,
well done for ACCC.
If I could just get you to put on the record, what is the Sleep Bub Safe campaign?
Our EGM for product safety will take that one, Senator.
Thank you.
Thank you. Madeline Richardson, Executive General Manager, Consumer and Product Safety. In August 2024, we launched the Sleep Bub Safe campaign, and the purpose of that campaign was to raise awareness of infant sleep safety for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities. As many people in this room would be really well aware, inclined products such as bouncers and rockers can pose a serious hazard or risk of sudden unexpected death in infants, particularly when they're used for sleep. This might be if an infant rolls away, something that happens when they turn over that might block an airway. A head might be slumped over, pressing the chin downwards towards the chest. And in raising awareness with communities, we really hope to reduce the number of sudden unexpected deaths in infants. And really sadly, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities are overrepresented in the data. Through the campaign, we worked in really close partnership with a range of organisations and healthcare professionals and experts and organisations. We work with an advisory group in particular to identify ways to communicate safe sleep clearly and with cultural sensitivity, including sort of language and approach. And we also worked with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander creative agency to develop the whole range of resources that were available, which included sort of printed materials, short animated videos, posts across social media, and our messages were really around keeping the sleeping space clear, sleeping on a flat surface, avoiding bouncers and rockers, and also ensuring that car seats are in the right position as well. We've seen some really positive engagement and uptake through the campaign. We deployed it across a whole range of platforms, as I mentioned, including airing through the Aboriginal Health Television Network at 196 community health clinics, with an anticipated reach of around 60% of our target audience, parents, carers and families. We are also in the process of undertaking a detailed evaluation of that campaign, and I think it's also really important to recognise all of the partners that worked with us in achieving some of those outcomes and ensuring our message was really well targeted and effective in communicating some of that really important information as well. And as I said, I think this is also in really strong alignment with a range of priorities that we have, particularly from a product safety perspective, where we focus on some of the risks to young children and vulnerable people, and the campaign's an extension of our work in that regard.
So you mentioned partners quite a few times there. We know that cultural safety matters, and you indicated that there was an agency that prepared materials that were culturally safe and appropriate. To what percentage do you think that the investment went to the community, First Nations people themselves? How prominent were they? Did they lead the campaign?
In terms of the production of sort of some of the campaign creative?
Of all parts of it.
Look,
do you want to take it on notice to give me a sense of that?
Sure, I can absolutely do that. As I said, I think we've ensured that the distribution was really targeted towards those sort of platforms and channels where we had a good degree of confidence that our target audience would engage, and also, as you've highlighted, work with a range of partners, including Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander creative agency, Ngāti Creative, to develop the resources. But happy to provide some more detail, absolutely.
If I could ask one more. There's another matter that's affected a lot of children and families, and I understand that in November you were made aware of a range of toys, decorative coloured sand that could contain tremolite asbestos. Now, my understanding about that particular form of asbestos, it's a naturally occurring one, but what's the status of the coloured sand situation for families across Australia right now?
And thank you for that question. We absolutely recognise that it's a very important issue, and we've been dedicating our resources to that as well, particularly working really closely with a range of expert agencies, including across health, as sort of asbestos experts, and with work health and safety. Our role in what is an evolving situation has largely been around the voluntary recalls that are underway. At the moment, there are 7 recalls for various sand products where the presence of asbestos has been detected. Those have occurred from about mid-November, to date. And a voluntary recall is where the supplier gets in contact with us and where they have identified a risk with their product and is undertaking a voluntary recall. We are continuing to actively engage across those expert agencies. We have produced the guidance material, guidance around disposal, guidance around handling, and continue to work with some of those expert agencies to understand some of the testing results that are underway. There are a number of products across the country, as you've identified, that are in households or may have been in schools as well. And so part of our current remit is to understand the risks that are presented, which the health agencies to date have categorised as very low risk, to ensure those recalls are undertaken effectively and to keep engaging with those experts as the situation evolves.
So what level of coordination has been happening nationally, and who's been leading that?
A whole range of agencies are at the table. To name a few, the Asbestos and Silica Safety Eradication Authority, ASEA, one. There is also the NHealth, which is the Environmental Health Standing Committee, which advises the Australian Health Protection Committee. There is a network of work health and safety regulatory agencies that come together that also have a focus on asbestos as well. There have been very regular meetings and discussions and engagements with that that network to navigate these issues as they've arisen. Exchange of expert advice and information as it's come to light.
So, going to bed tonight, kids are all in bed, you go and do the clean-up. If people find this sort of sand product, what's the current assessment of risk, for those who are... When you're a mum with kids and you're trying to work, or a dad with young kids and you're trying to work, sometimes you miss the messages, right? You never know. Somebody could be driving home tonight and they're going to hear this. So what's the situation as it stands today?
So the situation is that the risk has been categorised as very low risk. That's informed by the expert health agency, or NHealth rather, the committee. The advice is to stop using the products. It is to place it in a heavy-duty plastic bag, double tape it, securely label it and store it in a secure location, and to refer to the range of local regulatory agencies for the correct handling and disposal advice. It does.
So if I've never done that before and I'm in New South Wales where I live, who is the correct regulatory agency, right? So hopefully you never have to do this in your lifetime, and if you do it maybe only once, who do I call? And I know the answer won't be Ghostbusters, so that's the question.
I understand that. So it's in New South Wales case, it might be the relevant work health and safety regulator. I would encourage anybody to go to the Product Safety Australia website, to look at the very clear visible icon that is asbestos sand recall, to refer to the disposal and handling advice, to refer to the links that take you to your best advice from a state-based perspective, and to follow that. As you'd appreciate, there's different jurisdictional approaches in terms of where you might dispose of it, the best place to take it. That does vary across the country.
Yeah, depending on where you live,
that's
regional,
right,
city,
but the
et cetera.
advice is clear. So
but if you want to know if the product is safe, you go to Product Safety and then you'll find it. Great. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think we are done now with the ACCC. Thank you very much. So now we are calling up the Australian Bureau of Statistics. They could make their way to the desks as quickly as possible. We don't have an opening statement from them, do we? No. You don't have any questions, Mrs. Barb and Matt? Yeah.
Very productive. Thank you.
Welcomes representatives from the Australian Bureau of Statistics. Do you have an opening statement?
Dr. Philip Gould, Acting Australian Statistician. No, we don't have an opening statement.
Great, thank you. We'll go straight to questions. Senator, no questions. Senator Canavan.
Yes, I'll be quick, but thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask about the national accounts today, in particular the announcement that you'll be collecting data on the illicit market for cigarettes. Could you explain to me a bit what that will involve?
Yeah, certainly. So Brenton Goldsworthy, Deputy Statistician, Insights and Statistics Group. There's obviously been a lot of commentary about the growth in the illegal tobacco market. A month or two ago, I think it was, in the context of the monthly household spending indicator, we included some commentary on the decline in legal tobacco consumption. And with that as context, we've decided to try and estimate what the illegal component is with a view of including it in the national accounts.
Okay.
I might just add that the international standards that underpin the system of national accounts, they support the inclusion of illegal activity as well as legal. So including this in the national accounts would be very much complying with international standards.
So how are you going to do this? You're going to be infiltrating the gangs yourself, Mr. Goldsworthy? Will you be to try and measure the true sales volumes?
It's not plan A,
you can pull it off.
I can assure you of that. So that's why we're taking some time to work our way through it. I'm sure in the context of COVID, you would have read and heard about use of wastewater as a vehicle through which you can sort of detect consumption of...
so you'd be going to the sewers?
Again, not me personally, but but that is potentially a source.
Okay.
We're not expecting to be able to include anything in the national accounts for about 12 months.
Has the ABS ever... before I ask that, so the idea will be once you measure this, that will become part of GDP effectively?
That's the idea. So the more... there's a couple of elements, right? One is to estimate consumption of illegal tobacco. It's also to understand where that illegal tobacco comes from. One can assume a lot of it is imported, but we'd obviously want to verify that. Right. Then we need to think about how to include margins for retailers, because as you'd appreciate in terms of GDP impact, higher consumption would be offset by higher imports. So the actual impact on GDP comes from retailer margins. So it's quite complex.
When you say retailer margins, you mean the margins of the criminal gang?
Yes.
Okay. Right. Yeah. Okay. So has the ABS ever before included estimates of the black economy as part of GDP?
So when it comes to the shadow economy, we include estimates of that. So,
but have you? My question is: has it ever officially gone into the GDP figure?
Yes, for the shadow economy.
So you've done that for the shadow economy.
So we include margins on each of the industries. So we use ATO data to give us a steer as to where the shadow economy is greatest. So, for example, in the construction industry, we would add a little bit more in the shadow economy in that industry than what we would some other industries. So that is included in the national accounts at the
Jeez, I'm starting to get worried about how accurate this data is. How do you do that? It's got to be a judgment call, is it?
No, well, we use ATO analysis of tax gap data that they produce. But I don't pretend to know a whole lot much more than that. So,
okay. All right. When do you think this will come? Will it be for the next quarterly update, or?
Certainly not the next quarterly update. Okay. No, probably in about 12 months.
And do you have early estimates of how much this? I mean, you've got this table here. I couldn't quite understand. Is that so? Are you saying at the moment the impact could be up to sort of 0.5 percentage point of final consumption?
What table are you?
So this is in the sections, only a small section here on cigarettes and tobacco on your web page on the national accounts today. And there's a table, impact of cigarettes and tobacco on HFCE. There's a September 25 quarter line. So are you saying, I just couldn't quite understand the column headings. Is it a 0.5% impact at the moment, you believe, or roughly?
No.
Okay.
I wouldn't interpret it like that. So what this table shows is it shows what measured household consumption is and what measured household consumption is if you exclude tobacco. So official or estimated tobacco consumption has been declining, as you'd be aware.
Right. So it's having a 0.1% negative impact on consumption, possibly.
The decline
if you assume that tobacco consumption is growing in proportion to overall consumption. Okay.
But we need that's what we need to estimate.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. And look, finally, just one on behalf of the consumers of your products, I welcome the release of the monthly CPI series. But as I could tell the other day when I tried to use it, the problem is now the main tables for CPI only go back a few years now, because you've got one series for monthly, and then obviously there's a quarterly series I think goes back to the 1940s, I think. So it's now a bit of a hassle to have to try and link them up. Do you know what I mean? Is there any way you could produce a table that just has quarterly and then monthly, going back to the 40s?
Brenton, do you want me to?
Do you know what I mean? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, hi, I'm Michelle Marcotte. I'm the Program Manager for the Prices branch. So when we release the December monthly publication, we'll put in the quarterly tables in the December quarter, and from then on we'll publish those quarterly tables going forwards, and those tables will go all the way back to 1940.
Okay, this last one I don't think had that, but okay.
No, because we need to rebase the quarterly data to 100, and we didn't want to confuse people by having it for 2 months on a different index level and then change
those
it when
quarterly
we get to
tables
December.
will only be released every quarter on the usual
They'll be
cycle.
updated every quarter, but they'll be released every single month.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. All right, that's good to know. Thank you.
Thank you. ABS,
yeah, got some questions.
If you can keep it quick, Senator O'Neill.
Thank you. So, just in the way that Senator Canavan has just asked, the reliability of data, one of the critical things that we need for accurate data is the census, critical instrument for every part of government and for the nation. So could I just ask, where are we up to in terms of the cycle of the census and its preparation?
Jenny Telford, General Manager, Census and Population Division. So we are preparing for Australia's 19th census next year. So census night next year will be the 11th of August 2026. Preparations have been underway for a number of years to get us ready. This year we underwent a large-scale public-facing test, which is something we do every cycle just to test our readiness, the readiness of our systems, our processes, our teams. We had a great outcome from the test this year. We had an over 50% response rate, and it is a voluntary exercise, so we invited 60,000 Australians to help us test the census. 50% of them did that. We have analysed the data that has come through, and we're feeling pretty confident about next year's census.
Okay, so preparation well and truly underway. The test passed with flying colours. So everybody's just got to make sure they're available on the 11th of August to fill in the form.
Absolutely. We are well underway with our preparations, but of course we do need every Australian household to get online next year and complete the census. We're aiming for a 95% response rate, which is similar to our last few censuses we've had here in Australia, and as long as we all get online and or on paper and fill that in, we'll be on track for a success.
So that was going to be my question. And digital is great and it works for a lot of people, but it doesn't work for everybody. So to make sure that everyone's data can be captured, what processes have you got in place for public education about how to engage with the census across the written platform as well as the digital platform?
Yeah, so our estimates are that we think 85% of Australian households will choose to participate online, but that still leaves quite a large proportion that we want to make it easy for them to complete the census on paper. In some parts of remote Australia, we also have interview-based data collection, so we have designed processes to enable every Australian to participate in the way that best suits them. We will have a large-scale public-facing communications campaign that will start to roll out next year as we get closer to the census, make people aware, help people understand what they need to look out for and how to participate. We'll also, for the first time in 2026, invite people to subscribe to the census through MyGov. So Australians will be invited to participate. They will opt in to receive communications from the ABS in their MyGov inbox rather than paper mail arriving in their post box at their house. That's a new initiative for the 2026 census. We tested that this year and we're really pleased with how well that performed.
Excellent. And staffing, it's always an issue, but when the census comes around, where are you with that?
Yes, so recruitment is inevitably going to be a bit of a challenge for us next year. So the census aims to recruit 30,000 Australians temporarily across the whole country. Obviously, we've got to count everyone in Australia. That number is slightly down from the previous census. Even though the population grows, we try and encourage many Australians to self-respond, which means our staff numbers grow, but not to the extent of the population. But 30,000 is still a lot of people we'll be looking for. We've already commenced that recruitment activity. We do expect to have some challenges finding people who want to be part of our team in some parts of Australia and have a range of contingency plans we're preparing to either reach out, engage, travel people in, if we need to, a range of different strategies in place if we do encounter challenges, which we have in the last few censuses, so we expect that to continue.
Well, yeah, given the low level of unemployment, obviously it's going to be very challenging, because it's great that so many people in Australia are working. So how about you do a free ad now in case anybody's listening in. If you at home decide that you'd like to be part of making sure our census is distributed and responded to properly across the country, where should you apply?
Yeah, so just go to census.abs.gov.au. We have a talent community that everyone can sign up to now, and that will mean we can let you know when jobs start to get advertised next year. As we approach the census, obviously our recruitment campaign will continue to build, but from February next year we will be advertising widely across all parts of Australia, looking for people who really want to help their community get a great outcome next year.
Wonderful, thank you very much. That's all, Chair, thank you.
I think we can now conclude with I don't even know who we have with us now, I'm getting tired. The ABS. Thank you. You are free to go now, thank you so much, and apologies for the very long delay. We are now on to the Australian Tax Office, Tax Practitioners Board and the Australian Charities and Not-for-Profit Commission. If they could join the room very quickly. We have 20 minutes until our ending tonight, so we will be as efficient as we can with our questions, unless they've all left us.
No, they've been out there all afternoon.
Chair, sorry, I do want to get to AOFN.
Well, we're not
AOFN.
going to, unless you finish with tax in 20 minutes, which I'd be...
No.
No. We had shorter lunches, we had shorter breaks. I've got something I need to do, collect. I have a 10 o'clock... I was told it's 10 o'clock hard marker, and that's why we had shorter lunch and shorter breaks through the day.
That was the program that's been agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. We keep going.
Standing orders are quite clear. It's like it's not a discretionary thing.
You haven't managed the day. None of you have managed the day. Well, they were the agreed rules.
Standing orders
Well, they were the rules that were agreed by the committee. Like, if it was going to be an 11 o'clock finish, we should have had a decent lunch instead of having to compress things.
Do we need to call a private meeting?
Looks like we get on. Speak to the clerk if they want to. I think so. Standing orders.
Standing orders are just set of the questions for the witnesses.
That is not my understanding, but let's keep going and I'll try and... Yep. Okay, so I would now like to welcome representatives from the Australian Tax Office, Tax Practitioners Board and the Australian Charities and Not-for-Profit Commission. We have an opening statement from the ACNC, but not the others. Are any of you wishing to make an opening statement? It would help us greatly if we table the ACNC response and we can go straight to questions with the others.
Senator, given an extension from the previous one, my opening statement from the first half of the session remains.
Great, thank you, Mr. Heffron. Anyone else? No? Okay, good. We'll go to Senator Pocock first.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for your long wait. I want to go to Mr Michael O'Neill's employment. I asked a question on notice seeking information, correspondence in relation to that employment, which Mr Heffron, you've knocked back. Do you agree, Mr Heffron, that with the AFR's assessment that Mr O'Neill is, quote, one of the nation's most experienced tax investigators?
Well, it'll depend on the set of one of the most. Clearly, Mr O'Neill is a very experienced tax official, having spent many years in the ATO, done a range of roles. So he's certainly a very experienced tax official, definitely.
And there are new inquiries underway, are there not, into PwC in which he has particular expertise and historical knowledge that will be lost if he's not part of them?
Well, I think exactly what the TPB has on is probably more a question for Mr de Cure. But bearing in mind that Mr O'Neill was the secretary to the board has a lot of expertise, and indeed the 200 staff, or 199 staff, that are all tax officers as well, that Mr O'Neill led. So they have a lot of expertise as well. So I don't think the movement of one person out of a role would necessarily result in any significant, in fact, any diminution.
Who made the decision to move Mr O'Neill?
I did.
And what is the title of Mr O'Neill's new job?
So Mr O'Neill is a specialist advisor with the ACNC. And can I note, Senator, that there wasn't just one move. There was a process. Might be useful to just step through the process. So with my existing cohort of Band 2 SES officers, there's about 30. Some have been in roles for quite a while. At the start of this year, this calendar year, I went through the process of making sure I had a conversation with each of those Band 2s to ascertain their sort of aspirations, what they want to do, where they want to go to next. And then in doing that, I mean, it's obviously apparent, I guess, organisation our size, there were some that had been in roles for quite a while, some had been in roles for a short period of time, and want to make sure that for the purposes of make sure the continuity of the organisation is guaranteed. The expertise is properly shared across the organisation. The leadership is kept as good as it can be, and importantly, Band 1 SES officers at a level below Mr O'Neill and other Deputy Commissioners, and EL2s, again the level below, get different forms of leadership that they can see an operation aspire to. So there were eight movements of Band 2 officers, of which Mr O'Neill was one. Okay. So the sort of characterisation that, oh no, you're not doing it, but just in case people reading the Hansard, it wasn't as if one officer was moved. There were 8 moved and one promoted.
Thank you. I'm just very conscious of the time. I wonder, could you please on notice supply us with a job description for his new role?
Certainly, take that on notice.
And has he commenced in that job?
Yes, he has.
Was it advertised?
No.
Did he apply for the role?
No, I asked him to do the role.
You asked him to do it?
I asked him to do the role.
Is it an ongoing role?
Well, all the roles in the broader portfolio, either ongoing or temporary, depending on when.
Is his role temporary or permanent?
The role itself will be one that is in the ACNC. How long that lasts will depend on the role that he has to undertake and when that's completed. So that will have to be determined as we work through.
So Mr O'Neill has gone from a permanent position in the ATO, as I understand his previous employment, into an impermanent position. Is that a fair characterisation?
No, Senator.
Could you explain then whether his job is permanent or not?
He's a permanent officer in the tax office.
Okay, so he is permanent.
Yep.
Is there any...
permanent officer in the ATO. The role he takes at any point in time will be the role that I place him into. And of course, have a conversation with people. They don't just sit into sort of a random selection and people pop into roles. So I have careful conversations with individuals and understanding what's needed for the organisation. And in doing that, where there are particular areas where different skill sets are required, I want the right fit for that role.
So I want to understand exactly what his security is in employment.
His security, he's an ongoing, permanent employee.
And any diminution in any other conditions or wages for Mr O'Neill?
No.
No. I'm asking this not because I'm making random questions in relation to single employees in the ATO, which is a very large organisation. I know there are privacy issues here, but there is an ongoing public interest in Mr O'Neill's employment. You will be aware of the report out of the Finance and Public Administration References Committee, which set out 5 previous processes in relation to Mr O'Neill's employment. Of course, he was a key prosecutor of the case in relation to PwC. His employment was threatened through 5 successive events documented on page 143 of that report. And they include, I know my time is short, allegations of bullying, harassment, which were never sustained, an internal inquiry in the TPB, also not sustained, a change to his employment contract attempted by Minister Sukkhar's office, which was not successful, a workplace assessment, the Oliver Review, which was set aside, and a fraud investigation, which also had no legs. So there have been a lot of attempts to move Mr O'Neill out of his effective role, and hence my questions and my request for details and correspondence in relation to his employment.
Sorry, Senator, could I just make the observation that any officer in the ATO, second commissioners included, given I'm the CEO and the accountable authority, I have the capacity to move anyone to roles that I think are important. And I just want to make clear that with Mr O'Neill, he's a permanent officer in the ATO, and he would expect, as I would do, ensure that where there are organisational needs for us or for the other bodies in the accountable authority, being the ACNC and the TPB, that I would move staff to deal with issues as they arise, and none of that takes away from the permanent nature of any employee.
I understand, and I understand your prerogative as the person in charge of the organisation, Mr Heffernan, but this is not just any employee. This is an employee whose senior leaders of the ATO, some Treasury officials and the Officer of Minister Sukar attempted to remove from his effective prosecution of PwC. So this is a very political move that people are paying attention to. It's not just about permanency, and it's not just about your prerogative, of course, to be a manager. So did Mr O'Neill raise...
Sorry, Senator, when you say it's a political move, I certainly don't regard it as a political move. I regard it as a move that's important for the sustainability of the organisation, the health of my staff at the TPB, to make sure people there get to observe different leaders, because they will have legitimate aspirations about more senior roles, and of course not just supporting the TPB, but back in the ATO and the service more broadly. So I need to give weight to that to actually be an effective leader of the organisation.
And I appreciate that we have a different perspective about it. I have been here for a number of years and have witnessed these events, and it's not just me. I have had no conversation with Mr O'Neill about this. I have no idea about his perspective on it, but I am concerned about a move that compromises what has been a really important element of the prosecution of the case on PwC. Did Mr O'Neill raise any concerns about the administration of the ATO internally or externally prior to being moved to the ACNC?
Certainly not to me.
In the form of any form of complaint, formal or informal?
About when you say the operation of the ATO,
any element, any aspect of the ATO's operation.
You mean about me?
No, not about you, about any aspect of the operation of the ATO. Did he make any formal or informal complaint? You may need to take it on notice, but it's not a complaint about you at all. I haven't used those words.
No, but when you say the ATO, I mean, essentially, without being arrogant about things, sort of the commission's the ATO. So if it's a complaint about, or you're talking about complaint about different parts of the ATO?
Any aspect. I mean, people make complaints about all kinds of things, and they have a right to do so as employees.
Certainly. Look, I'll have to take that on notice, Senator.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I just finish? I've got 2 extra bits on this before I've got a range of other questions also.
You'll need. Can you put any on notice? Because we want to get to the coalition.
I want to ask these. If there has been any notice, any complaint at all, emails, letters or documentation concerning that in relation to Mr O'Neill, I would like you to provide those on notice. And will the replacement of Mr O'Neill in the TPB be of the same seniority and rank as Mr O'Neill? He was the CEO Secretariat to the TPB. Will the new person have that rank and title?
The new person will be the same seniority and level. Just in relation to, I just want to, I'll take that question on notice about complaints or about complaints about the ATO. I just would, should note that, and I have to take that on notice, but there may be, sometimes things are made that are designed not to become, to make them public would breach confidences. So, but in taking it on notice, I'll do my best to make sure the committee is apprised of.
I appreciate that, Commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I've got about 30 questions, most of which I'm going to put on notice, but I will ask a couple of them. I want to know how many small businesses have been subject to ATO debt recovery in action in the last 12 months.
Certainly. Well, I think Mr. Allen may have those numbers.
Thank you.
The numbers in front of him.
David Allen, Second Commissioner of Frontline Operations. In terms of actions we've taken over the last 12 months, in total, in different forms of actions, including correspondence, firmer actions and so on, we've taken about 6.2 million actions.
6.2 million in 12 months. Can you, on notice, provide a breakdown of any actions taken since 2022 and what kind they are? So how many recovery actions have commenced and how many have completed?
Yes, we can do that. We have also provided, through the question on notice, some of those answers as well. I think they were tabled yesterday or this morning.
Terrific, thank you. What's the average size of a debt owed by a small business that triggers a recovery action?
We have many different criteria and parameters for what initiates a debt recovery action. For example, we may have a relatively small super guarantee debt, but because we prioritise super guarantee debts over everything else, we will move forward with more firmer and stronger actions on that. There's also other elements such as the behaviour of particular taxpayers in the past and their adherence with payment plans and so on. So there's not just one average, there's just a whole range of different factors that we bring to bear. And so particularly before we do firmer actions such as garnishes or direct penalty notices, an individual officer will assess each case on its merits and look at all these different parameters before a decision is made to go to the next thing. Just the amount of the tax is just one element.
Okay, so with each with each type of action that you take, can you provide on notice the average amount that is being recovered?
We'll have a look at how we can present something to give some insight as to the sort of the magnitudes of actions. Yeah.
And what's the ATO's policy on discretion when small businesses cite hardship? Are officers empowered to pause recovery, or is the presumption always towards collection?
So we absolutely, so the primary thing we want with small businesses is engagement with the ATO. We need to understand the circumstances of small businesses and whatever challenges they may have. And we have a whole range of activities, a whole range of measures that we can put in place to support business. For example, payment plans. And I think last year we issued over 900,000 payment plans to small business. We can offer payment deferrals, we can offer GIC remissions or general interest charge remissions. So we've got a range of treatments that we use all the time to support small businesses. In terms of specifically hardship and waiving of the debt, that's not really available to small businesses because that's really just for individuals in very narrow situations of hardship.
Is it possible, though, to negotiate an outcome with larger corporates or larger businesses, just not with smaller businesses?
In terms of debt recovery, we apply the same principles across all the different markets. In relation to particularly sort of large businesses and disputes and so on, there's a sort of a different pathway. When any business, whether it's a large business or a small business, disputes a tax assessment, then we effectively stop any recovery action. And so a marker goes onto the system to say that that assessment is being objected to, and then we stop any further recovery action.
Okay. I've got some questions about that, but I'll put them on notice. I'd be interested to know how many small businesses had garnishee notices issued against them in the last year, and the average amount of that?
Yes. Got lots of data here. The garnishes. Last year in 24-25 we did 11,317 garnishes.
Mm-hmm. And is there an average amount of those? Or is that...
No.
Okay. And how many small businesses had their bank accounts frozen by the ATO in the last 12 months?
None.
None. Okay. Has the ATO done any benchmarking on its debt collection practices against comparable jurisdictions, so New Zealand or the UK or Canada, to assess whether the ATO's actions are harsher or in line with other jurisdictions?
We haven't done specific benchmarking with other jurisdictions because every jurisdiction has, quite different regimes. But what we can say is that really sort of post-COVID, every sort of OECD country is definitely dealing with significant high levels of debt, and predominantly a lot of those flow from the small business market.
Do you have any data on the number of small businesses that have closed because of recovery action by the ATO?
No. I mean, we have data on the number that we've initiated wind-ups.
Right. So
and ASIC has the data on for insolvencies more generally.
Right. So I suppose the flip side of that is, do you monitor how often a small business remains solvent after one of your actions?
No, we don't really. We do know, however, that a number of our actions, such as director penalty notices, will require the business to have a look at its insolvency. And that is then a decision for them as to whether they're a solvent business, can pay their debts, tax debts and other obligations and move forward. And sometimes they self-initiate going through an insolvency process.
Okay. Chair, I've got many, many more questions, but I'll put them on notice.
Thank you. So we are at 10. How many, how much longer?
Sorry, can I just jump in here? Senator Pocock, my understanding was this committee had resolved to finish at 10, and because of that, we had shorter breaks. Now, other committees finish at 11, and in order to make sure people had the same time, so people didn't lose questioning time, it was shorter breaks. Now, I've structured my day around that, and for people to just now that we finish 10 o'clock, say, well, frankly, I'd like longer, especially people who care a lot about, the balance of work and other things, I think it's unreasonable. Now, I'm happy to be as reasonable as I can, but they were the terms with which I was instructed on this committee, and I structured my day around that. And we haven't had a lot of government questions. People have had time. The chair has been trying to manage this, ask people if we could get through. So I'm happy to sit here for longer, but I want to put on the record the fact that if we're going to be here till 11, then we have decent breaks. So I think an indication of how long we've got to go, because I do have a commitment that I have agreed to do tonight, that if I'm not able to do it, I would like to know that so that I can then go and make arrangements.
Senator Pocock, do you have a 10-minute block?
Look, I understand what the Minister is saying.
I've got a heap of questions too.
I have questions
but there's
that
just
I've
been
sat,
so much
and I wasn't party to that decision. I'm sorry. I thought we were sitting to 11.
Well,
I have tried
Senator
to be.
McKim would have been.
If I may
the
finish,
program's been.
I've tried to be efficient in my questioning today. I haven't been here all day. I feel I have been. I have questions that I am very eager to ask, and I would like the opportunity to do so.
Do you have an indication of time?
I would need at least 15 minutes, maybe 20. I have a bunch of questions from colleagues that I will put on notice that would have us here for another half an hour. Just saying. Which I'll put on notice.
Committee's hands here. I think the coalition are done.
Okay.
We've put an awful lot on notice.
It's pretty unfair, Barbara, frankly.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You haven't been here all day. No. We have.
I've been elsewhere all day.
Yeah. Well, it just means agreements.
The best efforts of Senator Hugh to keep us on time, and with requests for early release of agencies that we were clearly very unlikely to get to, there has not been a coordinated response. And this has happened time after time after time in this committee. I'm not blaming you in any way, Senator Pocock. I have a lot of questions I'd like to ask the ATO and the TPB myself. But, we are rationing our questions to try and give as much time to the coalition as possible. And yet here we are at the end of this period with an agreed close of business, and because of just intransigence to complete anything on time, we find ourselves once again rushing the last witnesses and dismissing people at the last minute. It's not good enough.
Yeah, I think that's 15 minutes and that's it.
Well, let's just do that. I'd rather talk about it for
10 minutes.
Yep.
10 minutes and get it done.
Well, no, I think I agree. No, I agree, Matt, but...
How long have we been talking about it?
I agree, but I think it is important to put on the record... People go on about one family and then do stuff like this.
I haven't done it.
Yeah.
Well, you have.
A victim of it.
No, you're not a victim of it, Senator Pocock. You're not
if I can just...
entirely in your hands.
One person at a time. If we can have a finish of 10:20. Senator Pocock, you can take us to 10:20. I would note that the program has been circulated for some time with a finish of 10 o'clock and all of the breaks. So it's unfortunate you did not see that, Senator Pocock, but it has been made available to everybody. We can throw to you and we will finish at 10:20, and thanks to the other senators for... We'll deal with that after this, but that is what we're working towards.
We've got to make a decision.
Okay, they're obviously...
I can, yes.
Okay.
Let's over here and I'll...
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, everyone. If I can come back to you, Commissioner. Did Michael O'Neill ask to stay on in his pre-existing role and see these PwC investigations through to the end?
The conversations I have with my staff, I'd prefer to keep private.
Sorry?
The conversations I have with my staff, I'd prefer to keep those private between my staff and me. I think if I get into the business of relaying confidential staffing discussions, then I just don't for privacy reasons, I'd prefer not to answer.
So I will ask then on notice if you could check whether there is any documentation, any letter or formal request made by Mr O'Neill, and could you provide that to the committee, please?
I'll take that on notice.
Thank you. Mr De Cure, if I can come to you. In the October estimate session, you said 3 individuals at PwC had breached item 1 of the Code of Conduct relating to honesty and integrity. They received written cautions and nothing was published, I don't think, on your public register. I asked you on notice to clarify whether those 3 people were still employed at PwC, and on notice you said that 2 of the 3 have received written cautions from the TPB, remain connected to PwC and form part of their sufficient number. Just to clarify, were these 3 individuals partners or not?
Yes, they were partners.
The 3rd individual who received a written caution is no longer with PwC. Do you know if they have left or were exited from the firm?
I'd have to take that on notice.
Thank you if you would take that on notice. Is the Department of Finance aware that these 2 partners are still within PwC? Part of the justification for letting PwC back into the fold as a contractor to the public sector was that, quote, all partners responsible for breaches of confidentiality or failure to take appropriate action were exited and are no longer partners at PwC or had consequences applied. Hence my question.
I think that was a question for the Department of Finance.
No, the Department of Finance has said that they did not understand that their awareness that they remain partners will affect the way they treat them. So I'm asking, are they our partners? And you have confirmed that?
I understand they're partners.
They are remain partners. Can you tell me what the status of the current TBB investigation into PwC is at?
So as I described last time, of the 9 investigations into partners, all 9 of the investigations are complete. There is one partner or former partner whose investigation is complete and is in the exercising appeal rights.
Yep.
We're unable to comment on that whilst the appeals are on foot. All those other matters are complete. We have a range of discussions with PwC ongoing, and it would prejudice those investigations if we were to discuss them here publicly, but we are in ongoing discussions with PwC about a range of matters.
And are they investigations or discussions?
Their investigation.
Is there a statutory limit on how far back the TPB can launch investigations?
There's not a limit on how far back, but there is a statutory time limit on how long we can take from the commencement of a formal investigation is 2 years.
Yeah. Can you expand on the legal professional privilege probe?
I don't think it's appropriate in these circumstances to give specific comment on any particular aspect of an investigation. We need to preserve the procedural fairness of those.
When do you expect it to conclude?
I would sincerely hope that they would conclude in the first half of 2026.
I understand the TPB is also examining allegations in relation to the Foreign Investment Review Board and whether PwC provided advice to clients that misled the board. Is that the case?
I think we've previously said that we're talking to PwC about a range of matters, including FIRB and LPP, legal professional privilege. They're within the range of matters that we're talking to. So
still ongoing. And
yes.
In relation to the ATO Commissioner, can you advise if there has been any interaction with the Foreign Investment Review Board over the allegations that PwC misled them?
I'm not sure.
I think we'd have to take that on notice.
Yeah,
thank you.
So we'll take that on notice.
And sorry, I just want to put on the record, I'm not sure that your characterisation of finance's evidence or information is entirely correct. So I just want to go back and check that too.
Thank you. I look forward to your advice on that. It was reported yesterday in the AFR that Chartered Accountants Australia and New Zealand have suspended Mr Tom Seymour as a Chartered Accountant for 4 years and fined him $25,000. Meanwhile, the TPB has terminated Mr Seymour's tax agent registration, I think, almost 3 months ago. Correct. Does this mean that Tom Seymour was a registered chartered accountant this whole time despite TPB's finding?
We understand him to be a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants up until they suspended his membership, which they announced yesterday, yes.
And has he appealed your finding, TPB's?
No. And the time within which he can make an appeal has passed.
Okay. What kinds of evidence did you use to pursue Mr Seymour, and how have you delineated his activities from those he worked alongside?
You will recall, Senator, I think, at the commencement of the matter, we made available to this committee and I think another Senate committee some emails in relation to the Collins tax leak matter. So they form a significant part of the evidence pack, and also, further inquiries and other evidence gained through our investigation of those people in response to questions of PwC, in response to specific requests for information. We built a full investigation pack. The procedure from there is, in a formal investigation, we will prepare what's known as a submission to the Board Conduct Committee. That exact same submission with full documentation goes to the registered tax practitioner. So they get the same pack as the Board Conduct Committee gets. The practitioner is entitled to respond to the allegations that are made in that pack and to contest the evidence. So it's a formal investigation with a formal file. All the evidence is on the file. The allegations are set out in the Board Conduct Committee submission. The practitioner, the registered practitioner, has the same pack as the Board Conduct Committee. They submit their response to those allegations. It's considered by the Conduct Committee and the decision is made.
Thank you for that explanation and your answers, and I will put the rest of my questions in on...
Please. On notice, could you provide the committee with any information about the support for Mr Seymour from PwC Australia and or PwC Global? How did he get his resourcing, and were PwC Global involved? There's a million more questions I'd like to ask, but we never ever get there.
I'm happy to take it on notice, but it's a commonly understood feature of the PwC partnership agreement at the time that partners are entitled to support in terms of legal and professional fees to deal with regulatory and legal matters.
The problem is, Mr Decure, it's PwC Global one moment, then it's PwC Australia the next, right? And they just lie between the two.
Understood.
So let's get the truth of what happened.
Okay.
Thanks.
I'll take it on notice, Senator, but it may not be information that we have in that level of detail. It's highly unlikely that we have detailed information to respond to, but happy to take it on notice.
Thank you very much for all of the witnesses who stayed very long into the night for this. That concludes today's hearings. Thank you to all the other witnesses who've already left that appeared today, Hansard and Broadcasting for their assistance, and also other senators who did try and assist with the programming. And I remind all senators that the committee has agreed that any written questions on notice should be lodged with the Secretariat by Friday, December 11th. The committee stands adjourned.
And now we have to have a quick private meeting.